Hello, everybody. Welcome back. YouTube.com/Geek Aloud. It is Thursday night. It's 8 p.m.-ish, and we're alongside on the way of Ish this evening. But I'm joined by Unky Dunky. How you doing tonight, sir?
Mate, I'm doing very well. Better late than never. That's what they always say.
Indeed. And Bully's with us as well. Bully, how you doing, mate?
Well, you'd be better late than never, but we're here, so let's have some fun.
It's Thursday night, 8 p.m. somewhere, surely. First off, let me tell all you fine folks what to expect in the show this evening. We start off with games, Interrogation, and Deliberation. That are the 8 games that the three of us have been playing this week. Then we've got the news, the standoff, and audience interrogation. Unky Dunky, this week, what are the constraints for the standoff, please?
Mate, this week we're just looking at the most memorable gaming vista or view that we've seen in a game. I've picked a few here. You've probably got some of your own, so sound off in the comments if you've seen a beautiful moment in a video game that's just captured your heart and your mind. But we've got a few here, and I think there's about 9 of them. So just let us know in the chat. We'll come up with a winner in the end. I think if you're in the chat there, well, we've got a poll going as well. So let us know in there which one you think might win.
We've got the first half of the poll. I can only do 4 questions at a time, but at some point later, if I remember, I'll flick up the next half. But thank you very much, mate. That brings us to games, interrogation, and... Oh, gosh, I'm all bent out of shape here this evening. First up, game 1 is Evil West. And Unky Dunky, you've been checking out this one, mate, and you're going to have to tell me it from the start because I have no knowledge of this title. Please, mate, tell me things.
Well, not to be confused with Weird West that came out earlier in the year, or Wiki Wild Wild West, Jim West Desperado, Will Smith getting around there, or even Evil Dead. This is a new game by Flying Wild Hog Studios, the guys that brought us Shadow Warrior games 1, 2, and 3, and brought us Trek to Yomi earlier in the year as well. So they've been out there doing the things. I think this is the most fun I've probably had with one of their games recently. It's a third-person sort of action shooter style game. I don't even say shooter. It's got a lot of melee combat and stuff in it as well, which more akin to like something like God of War 2018 in a more linear sense. But no, I've been having a lot of fun with this game. It sort of harkens back to the old Xbox 360 days of action shooters, and it's just something I've felt like playing recently. Like, I know it's probably not going to get the best reviews out there because obviously gaming's moved a fair bit forward when it comes to its mechanics and world building and storytelling and all that kind of stuff since the Xbox 360 era. But it was just nice to go back and play something that's not just that is just as simple as going into these arenas and fighting enemies that look really cool. It's got great sound effects. The visuals are great. It runs. For me, it's been running flawlessly. I'm getting 60 frames per second at reasonably high high fidelity as well. It's got a quality mode and a performance mode, but as we've spoken, if you've got the option between quality and performance, you go on performance every day of the week when it comes to these style of games. But
yes.
I've been pleasantly surprised. I thought when the game started, there was, it's got enough mechanics to carry it through, but then your skill trees and stuff unlock, and you start unlocking more abilities, and you've got your little hidden sort of paths off the beaten track as well to find gold and stuff. So every level, if you just golden path it, you're probably not going to come across the hidden gems and chests and stuff that unlock more cash to be able to perform or to be able to afford these different abilities. So you do find yourself sort of moving off that beaten path and fighting enemies and waves and stuff that you otherwise wouldn't. But I'm having a lot of fun with this. It just doesn't take itself seriously whatsoever, which I think is perfect for a game where you are a cowboy fighting vampires. So no, having a lot of fun. Like it could be seen as more of a budgety title given the fact that it is just a linear story-based game. You go on level to level. There's no open world or anything like that. So the fact that it is a full-price game might be sort of a bit, this time of year when there's a whole bunch of stuff coming out, might be a bit of a turn off, and it's not on Game Pass or anything like that. So, but no, there's definitely a lot of production values gone into it. It's got really cool cutscenes, a really cool story that's underlining the action that you're doing as well. So, no, I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's kind of what I expected, but also just something refreshing, going back to that old school style of game, which we don't really see that often.
Vampires aside, mate, it's looking a lot like Call of
Juarez or Juarez?
Yeah, is that how it feels to play, or?
No, well, Cold War, Cold War is a first person shooter, and I really enjoyed the most recent one. I can't remember what Call of Juarez. Oh, it's not the Cartel. That was terrible. There was a more recent one where it was really cool storytelling, and it was like a guy telling a story and stuff, and he would change the story as you go. So it's got more that kind of vibe. Like he doesn't take himself seriously at all. Like his dad's the leader of this crew that are hunting these vampires and stuff, and you're out there, mainly as the hunter. But there's this big backstory about how the vampires are trying to sort of take over the world, and they're taking over sort of humans, and they've got, it's just your standard sort of Blade stuff where you got your day walkers and they're trying to get people that, that can come out during the daytime, and there's werewolf stuff in there as well. So if I had to give you an example of what this game is, it's kind of amalgamation between God of War, The Order 1886, and that's probably your best two things, I'd say. Like it's got the combat of God of War, but it's got the story of The Order 1886 with the vampires, which I think is a criminally underrated game. I actually really enjoyed The Order 1886, but no, it's got that Gears of War vibe, big gruff dude, killing things, but it's got a lot of variety in its combat. You've got a skill where eventually you unlock this electronic clave kind of thing where you can, if you activate it, you can either pull enemies towards you or you can zap towards them. If you hit block at the right time, it electrocutes them. You can go into a melee punch. You can send them up into the sky and shoot them with your revolver, which is just pull the right trigger to hit your revolver, or you can hold it down for multiple attacks, or you can hold aim with your left trigger and pull out your rifle and do sort of more pointy damage that's more direct, and you'll have enemies that this little gold circle comes up. Not sure if you'll see it on the screen, but if you can hit them with your rifle attack while they've got that little circle up, then they'll pretty much either die straight away or drop a health thing or something like that. So definitely a lot of combat involved in this game.
You absolutely nailed that, mate. Right as you said it, one appeared. So good work on that one. Can I tie you in now? Obviously, you haven't finished playing it, so not final, but where are you feeling score-wise? Where would you put it?
For me, I'll probably put it between that 7 and 8. It's probably where I see it at the moment, mainly because you look at games. Obviously, this year we've had Elden Ring, God of War, which is sort of more your 9s and 10s when it comes to how much has gone into a game. But for what this is, if I was on rating towards those games, it's 7 and 8. But it's definitely in that echelon. I think some people are going to gravitate more towards this than others. I think people that have sort of grown up playing the more sort of games of this era as opposed to that last era of the Xbox 360 era may see it as a bit shallow and that. But if you just want to sort of go back to sort of yesteryear of gaming and not think and turn your brain off and just shoot things and have it look good while you do it, definitely give this game a shot.
Are the sounds critical, mate, or could it be a good podcasting game maybe?
Oh, the sound is good. It's got there's a lot of good crunch and stuff to the melee and to the shooting. So you probably could get away with it because there is not a whole lot going on story-wise when you're in the missions. A lot of that stuff does happen with the cutscenes, and it is worth watching them because they're actually really well acted and well shot. I can't imagine how much it's actually cost them because it's a very good-looking game. So there's enough story there that you don't want to miss out on what you're doing. I mean, sometimes these action games, you don't need a lot of story or reason to do what you're doing, but I think this does do enough that it is worth sort of going through it and not just sort of switching the brain off completely while you're playing, as much as it could be easy to do so.
Okay, mate. And I see you playing this one on the Xbox. Is that because of the old man hands from God of War? Is this your reprise for the fingers?
Yeah, it was one of the reasons for getting this on there. The old man hands on PS5 playing God of War, that controller demands a lot. So I was just it was just good. I'll not only free up the man hands, but free up some of that hard drive space because at the moment with Call of Duty and God of War on the PS5, you can't fit a whole lot else on there. And we've got Callisto Protocol coming out very soon, which I think I'm going to go PS5. So anything else at the moment, it's going to hit on that Xbox, unfortunately.
My last question, then it's over to Bully for anything, is will we be talking about this in any of the categories for end of the year, game of the year type discussions, do you feel? Is it standing out anywhere?
We'd almost have to probably create a category that it can sit in. Maybe under best action retro game or something like that, because it's definitely a lot of fun. It's not gonna stand up under best action role playing game. You probably could call it. It's got sort of any of these games these days have some kind of RPG element when it comes to your skills and stuff you unlock, but no, it probably won't. Let's be honest. I mean, the fact that a game like even Dying Light 2 out this year, great game, is not sitting on any list at the moment is still a travesty, I think. But no, it's probably not going to be on any of those lists, but still definitely worth checking out.
Sorry, I just can't see one opportunity for it here. We could use a standoff 1 week with best use of the red scarf. I'm pretty impressed by that. But sorry, Bully, any thoughts from you, mate?
Oh, not a lot. I think it's a little bit intrigued because Unky mentioned the order 1886, which was, in my opinion, a pretty maligned sort of PS4 game. I thought it had a lot going for it.
Very underrated, yeah.
Yeah, and if it's got that sort of little bit of vibe with a little bit of the combat of God of War, which we'll talk about later, it's probably got piqued my interest. And even the fact, look, you mentioned that it harkens back to that PS3, Xbox 360 style of action game that we got at that stage. I actually enjoy going back and playing some of those anyway. And the fact that you're getting that style with maybe some updated visuals or some, the 60 frames or that sort of stuff, to me gets me quite interested in it. My only issue is if we're looking at it in that sort of lens and they're releasing it as a full price game, which is what they are. Although I noticed today, I think a couple of places have got it on sale with Black Friday already, even though it's only been out a couple of days.
Is that physical or digital? Sorry.
For the physical copies, they've got it on sale already, or for a cheaper price. So I would have thought, if you're talking Australian dollars, 50 to 70 would have been probably the range, or if you're looking in the US conversion, maybe the $40 range for them. I would have thought that's probably where you would have hit with that, and you probably would have got a better audience and maybe some more sales out of it, because from what I've seen, and Unky's only really confirmed that, is it's sort of that B tier of game, not the AA or the AAA that would command that sort of price. And I would have thought if you lowered the price off the bat, you'd probably get a few more sales out of it. So for me, I sort of look at that and go, if I can get it for that little bit of a cheaper price, that's probably something that'll interest me. And whether that ends up costing him sales and, ultimately a follow-up, or, it hurts the studio long term, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But that's sort of where I look at it. But certainly interested in it from what Unky said and from what I could see on the screen there with the gameplay that's playing.
Yeah, nice one. Final question from me, just off what you were saying there, Bully, but to Unky, mate, does it have the 360 brown visual filter available?
It doesn't, and it's probably a good thing it doesn't do that. It's looking like, I've been actually really impressed with the visuals of it. The level design, I think, is done really well, considering you are sort of moving level to level throughout the game. I think they've done really well with the way they've designed these levels, and they have a distinct look as well, and feel like you'd be outside the west, or you'd be into the caves. And now I'm at night, where there's like, you're even down on a minecart thing, and it's moving through a level really quick. You got to shoot things at a fast rate of pace. Like, they changed up really nicely, and then there's puzzles and stuff, like real minor puzzles you got to solve, similar to a God of War thing, but probably not that difficult. You never feel like you're a genius for solving these things, but it's just enough to sort of give you something to do in those quieter moments when you're not sort of fighting all those enemies. But no, it definitely doesn't have that brown filter. It's very colourful, and it pops from the screen when you're playing, and that goes with, as I said before, with the sound effects as well. So I think it's just a really fun game to play. Like, as I said, you switch your brain off. It's got that nostalgia hit, but as Bully said, but with a new fresh coat of paint. So no, definitely worth checking out. But again, I do probably echo the thoughts of Bully, where you'd be better for as a cheaper sort of game, or even if you want to hit Game Pass or something like that.
Awesome, mate. Well, it's definitely on my radar. That'll bring us to game 2 this week. Bully, tell us things about God of War, if you please.
Well, and if any of the listeners or viewers have caught up in the last couple of weeks, they know that I've had a running beef with Amazon and their bull dust delivery system. So I only managed to get this a couple of hours before last week's show, and didn't get a chance to play it until we'd wrapped up last week. So I've put a week into it. I'm probably about 12-ish hours into it. I take on board the praise that you guys have given it. For me, I'm sort of looking at the reviews and the discussions about it, and I think that the general line is it's this or Elden Ring for Game of the Year, and what a fantastic game.
Don't forget Stray.
Oh, okay. I'm a little bit off the boil with it, I'll be honest with you. As I said, I put a fair bit of time into it, but and look, I'll say this off the bat. Don't get me wrong; it's not a bad game. I'm not going to sit here and spend the next couple of minutes panning it completely. But
it's just that Bully's not good at it.
Well, It's not that. That'll bring me to my first point. So the enemies in this, for want of a better word, they're bullet sponges or hit sponges, whatever you want to call it. Playing on that, if you're playing on the harder levels, I'd understand it, I'd get it. But when you're playing on the base standard level and you're just having to sit there and hit the trigger, and you're doing minimal damage, especially in the early part of the game where you haven't really worked up your abilities, you haven't got
runics and stuff.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. That it became almost tiresome to the point where I actually knocked it down a level, not because I couldn't get past the combat scenes or any of the enemies or the bosses that I'd battled against. It was more the fact that I just couldn't I couldn't be bothered and almost didn't feel like investing the time and the energy into these combat scenes that you'd spend 5 minutes just constantly whacking that button to get the enemies. I don't know. You guys might have a different view, but I normally don't knock games down to an easy level to get through them. And as I said, it's not a matter of getting through it. It's just a matter of I couldn't be bothered.
Yeah, mate, I hear you completely. My old man hands through the week got so bad I couldn't play for more than 15 minutes of this game. Like, to your point, mate, because they are so bullet spongy, you are constantly trigger. My hands just can't take it. So I've had to go to the extreme of playing it on the PS5, but then using my PS4 to remote play. And then I've got that going to a second monitor that's off. So I'm looking at the PS5 output, but I'm remote playing on the old, DualSense 4, just to relieve the fingers.
Is there any way with the, and I haven't really looked into it, but the accessibility options as to either remapping the button or, turning the DualSense features off so that you sort of don't get that pushback on the triggers?
It's not even just the triggers though. It's the weight of the controller and it's the shape. It's slightly shaped. The ergonomics are just a little different. And going back to the more toy feeling PS4 controller just is such a savior to my fingers. So I've absolutely had to do it. To your earlier point, I believe in the accessibility settings, you can specifically, there is a slider for just combat difficulty. So for maybe, bullet spongy, is a good way to phrase it. So you could,
yeah, look, I haven't really sort of looked into
yeah, sorry, mate. To your point, you could lower that setting and that might be the ticket. But as I was saying, even the weight of the controller, if I'm not constantly bashing it, would still hurt the old man hand. So I've really, I've got to start, to your point, mate, it's lowered the game's score for me this week has been lowered by just the intense input required by the hands. I've got to knock it down at this point, at least a point.
Yeah, so I guess that's sort of my first point. I reckon, and as I said, I preface this by saying it's not a bad game, but I'm going to go through a few of the things pretty quickly that they're not massive issues, but they've just sort of annoyed me while you're playing it.
Yep.
And for mine, they're just a couple little points that the more that you play it and the more that you run into these little things, that just decreases the enjoyment that I'm getting out of it. And I spoke about the combat sort of stuff and the hits that you need to get the enemies. The puzzles, they're okay, but they're really repetitive. Like I found you go through there's a section that you got to go through where you've got to throw your axe at these, basically mirror, to try and hit these other switches, and that's okay, but you spend that entire level going through and doing the same thing. You've just got to find the angle, and then you get to the next area and they introduce a new way to do puzzles, and then they spend the next 2 hours utilizing that puzzle, and then you move to the next bit, and that's that puzzle for that level, and once you've done it once, you know how to do it. It's just a matter of working it out. So it's a puzzle for the first time you do it, and it works through the grey matter the first time you do it, but after spending an hour and a half, 2 hours running through that same section, I just sort of get to the point of I just either get rid of them, in my view, or mix it up a bit.
the more you play it, you realize they do those sections there where they make you do it over and over again, so you are aware of the mechanic. Because later on they do just switch it up, and you have to figure out the puzzles with the stuff you've already learned. So I get they do that, and it is kind of repetitive at the start. But yeah, as the game sort of progresses, they do utilize these puzzles, and you are having to utilize all the skills you've learned in those previous ones together and use them together. And then it does become much harder and more difficult and more fun to figure out these puzzles, because you are putting these mechanics all together at once. So I know, yeah, where you are at the moment, that's probably what is the case. I probably did feel the same, where it's like, oh, I'm doing a lot of the same thing at the one time, especially using the pink sigil stuff to solve puzzles. Sometimes it can be quite frustrating to figure out where you've got to do to get that chain and to sort of come off. But then later on, like, I found myself really enjoying the way that mechanics use. So like, I think maybe the frustration you've got now will sort of subside a little bit the more you get into it, because it does sort of break it up, and it does sort of give you the ability to sort of figure out puzzles yourself. You don't feel like, oh, I've got this one way I've got to do it, and it's a bit tedious, because now I've got to actually figure out what I've got to use when I've got to use it. And it does come into the fact where if you're not solving it, one of your characters is going to bob up and say, oh, maybe I'll do this, and it can be quite helpful, because some of the puzzles later on do get quite sort of intricate in how you got to use those abilities. So maybe just, I know where you're coming from and stuff, but it may, with that issue you're having, it might sort of alleviate a little bit the more you play.
Yeah. Oh, and I can see that. I just would have liked to them sort of switch it up in. So you've learnt one thing, and then you move on to the next thing, but still incorporate the first thing you've learnt as part of the next one, and then just sort of build on it each time you learn a new ability or a new way to solve puzzles, rather than sort of getting that 10 or 15 hours in and then mashing it all together and sort of working it through.
Yeah, and I think I think you struggle with a game that's as big as this. Like, I think if it was it was as small as the first game, then you'd probably be like, oh, I feel like I've had enough. But now that I've hit almost the 30-hour mark in the game, that it does sort of, like, the pacing of all that stuff kind of does make more sense, and it does fit in. And the stuff that's happening in the story, I think now, especially after having a few days off it, and then, as I said earlier, playing a whole bunch of other games, then coming back to God of War, like the attention to detail and everything that's gone into this game, just the way it looks, the way it plays, even the combat stuff. You like, even going and playing something like Evil West, which you just spoke about, and really enjoying that combat. You come back to God of War, and you're like, oh my god, it's on another level in terms of, it's doing something similar, but it's just that next level up, and you don't really appreciate it until you sort of step away from it for a bit. So maybe it's because you have sort of just you've delved straight pretty much into God of War, and because you've been behind by about 2 weeks thanks to Amazon, you are kind of just, it's whether that's sort of soured the taste, and you feel like you've got to kind of get through it, and it's maybe because you feel like you're behind, that you're just smashing through it. You kind of, the combat stuff feels like it's holding you up from stuff that's going on because we're ahead of you. I don't know whether that's something playing in your brain or not. That it's just the way you play is, if you'd played it from 2 weeks ago, that those issues wouldn't be sort of as pertinent to you than they are right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really feel that need of. I know you guys. Well, I don't know how far Troy is into it, but I know.
No, you're ahead of me at this point, Bully.
Yeah, and I know, Unky, you've put a fair bit of time into it, and you're well ahead of where I am. But I sort of don't sit there and go, I have to push through. I have to push through to get up to where you guys are to be able to have that conversation. I sort of still go at my own pace a little bit.
Yeah,
because I've been pushing through some other things, but. The only other couple of things I'll sort of touch on is, and these might sound really contradictory, but hopefully I can explain it well enough. So that the two things that I sort of look at is, I'm really disappointed, and I know this has been spoken about in other circles, the fact that this is on the PS4.
Yeah, that crawling is horrible.
There's sections that you'll go through, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but when you're going from one world to the next, or one area to the next, or as you boys like to trot out every day, biome to the next, you've still got the same as we had in the PS4 version. You go into that area where you're running around in a circle, waiting essentially for the level to load, and then the next gate pops up that you can pop through. The fact that they've still got that in the PS5 version absolutely does my head in. And then there's other bits, even within the world, once it's loaded up, there's still sections where it'll make you crawl through a little tunnel or squeeze through a crack or stuff like that, which...
I'm so over that particular mechanic at this point.
Yeah, some people might argue, it lends to the it lends to the environment, or it lends to the storytelling, because occasionally you get a bit of dialogue between Kratos and Atreus in there.
Oh, it's not occasionally. They always put dialogue in that
Oh,
point,
well, they
because I
always
think
put
that
dialogue, but the fact that we're using cheap tricks that we saw on the PS4
Yeah.
that aren't required on the PS5, but the only reason we're getting them is because instead of making 2 SKUs of the game, we've made 1.
Yep.
Um, I, I
I'm
don't know
with you
how it's gonna,
100%, Billy. I agree with that point
that's
completely,
10
mate.
hours in. I don't know how it's going to be 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 hours in. I'm
especially
losing my
when
mind.
Ratchet and Clank, you can go from one level to the next bully straight away with that mechanic,
Oh,
eh?
don't get me started on that bulldust tribe that they trotted out to try and sell that game. That's an entirely different scenario. But the other thing I'll say, which is going to be very contradictory to that, is it's in my opinion, it's almost overproduced in some fashion.
Do you mean specifically the combat or the performances? What's overproduced about it?
Well, just the not so much the combat, but the exploration areas and the moving around and that sort of stuff. Like there's areas where you can't drop off. You get to a cliff edge, you can't drop off the side of a cliff. You've got to go through this animation of sliding down a chain, or you've got to go through the animation of climbing up or climbing down and that sort of stuff. Which I don't know whether that is falling back into that requirement for the PS4 that it
I
loads
think it
while
is,
you're
mate.
doing
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
But there's certainly some areas that it doesn't happen, where you can just jump down the cliff. But then there's other areas where you have to crawl down that chain. And as I said, whether you say that's part of the loading part, or whether it's just because they felt the need to push that sort of stuff into the game to make it, oh, look at the character animations and what we can make them do, and that sort of stuff. You could probably make an argument either way. I don't know, but I sort of look at it and go, it's, as you're playing through it, the first couple of times you go, oh wow, this is amazing. The 30th, 40th, 50th, 100th time you climb down that chain, you just go, my God, I can't deal with this anymore. Just let me drop.
Yeah. Yep. Totally.
And I suppose there, as I said, I don't want to be overly critical of it. They're just a couple of the points. I know you guys have been praising it for the last couple of weeks. I know the general consensus amongst most people, although I think I haven't quite got to it. I did start it today, Troy. I know my hero Colin and his friends over on Sacred Symbols were fairly, from my understanding, fairly negative towards it.
They laid into it
in some aspects. It's a good game. Is it, in my opinion, game of the year? I wouldn't say it's in my top half a dozen, to be honest with you.
Yeah, right.
Is it this fantastic thing that I think most of us were looking forward to, is that breakout next gen game that we've all been looking forward to, that has been teased, that was supposed to originally come out, either as a launch title or at least within the launch window of the PS5. Is this that game that we were really looking forward to that much, and hedging the fact that this is this fantastic new system that we've got, and it'll be able to do this and it'll be able to do that, and all the rest of it. And maybe that's part of it as well. I'm just really disappointed in the fact that there's the PS4 version, and they just can't let go of the PS4 for some reason.
120 million install units, I think.
Well, it's part of that, but I'll flick that up for you. I'll cry on Jim Ryan. I get the fact that you got 120 million units out there, but the reality is, at the same time that they've released this, there's 25 odd million PS5s have been sold. They're becoming increasingly easy to get your hands on, to the point where you can walk into shops now and get them.
Yep.
That's not becoming an issue. That the supply constraints are still there.
Maybe the price increase has something to do with that.
Oh, the price increase and all that sort of stuff. I don't know why they didn't use this opportunity to say, this is our break.
Yeah.
This is our break from the PS4. We've now got the supply constraints out there. It's available for anyone that wants to go out and either get it online or go into a shop and get it. And this is going to be the killer game that we are going to throw out that system that is going to make you want to switch over if you haven't already. And I don't know. Again, old crying Jim Ryan, trying to squeeze every little penny out of everything that he can. Just, as I said, it's not a bad game. It's just annoying, and it's frustrating that we're getting.
No, I'm just gonna cut it and just end us on a positive because we've got a lot of games to get through as well. But I was playing this game this week, and it literally there was a moment it's brought both my eyes to tears. Like sometimes it might just well up, but it was literally both eyes drew tears this week just with one line of this game, and it's just where it solidified for me. Just the story itself is worth admission alone. So I don't care. It's PS4, PS5. Like I think the game itself just the more you play it, the better it is. And I think it is based on that story. I think you can harp on about the PS4 and whether it should be on there or not. As we've said, there's plenty of install base, and it's on there for a reason. And there's minor gripes we can sort of level at it because it has to be on both consoles. But at the end of the day, I think the story and stuff that they've told with this game, and I think with what they had with 2018 God of War to sort of create a game that's like it's not, as Bully said, it's not leaps and bounds ahead of that game, but I think it's the perfect sequel to one of the best games ever made, and I think this is now one of the best franchises we've got from PlayStation. I think there's a story coming up later which it shows that's the highest selling PlayStation game to date, and it's for a very good reason. So it just we need to move on, but just great game. As I said, it's the emotional resonance I've had with this game so far has just been beyond a lot of games I've played this year, and not many games bring me to tears, and this one does. So.
Yeah, I agree. If I could just ask one little point here, I think I could sum it up for us. I reckon, Bully, to your point, if they took out the bullet sponginess and the puzzle repeating it, if they shortened that awesome narrative from 60-odd hours to 35-odd hours, would that maybe have been more of a sweet spot and we all could have been happy?
I think so. And again, without, I know Unky's, we've got some other stuff to go into. I won't go into it too long, but in terms of a single-player game that isn't an RPG with all these, I know there's mechanics light in there, but the fact that a single-player game like this, third-person action, is pushing the 60-hour mark to complete it, or the 40-hour if you just run through the story, my opinion, that's too long. You should be looking at max 30 hours and probably closer to 20, 25 tops. To get through the narrative, and maybe another 10 on top of that if you want to be a completionist. That's where I'd sort of be looking at in terms of a single player game. That, and I know there's others that'll argue the toss that say it's fantastic. I can't get enough of it. And the longer it goes on, the better it is, because we're not going to get another one for years. I understand that argument, but the playthrough is they're dragging things on unnecessarily, in my opinion.
Well, I see. I'm happy they got it out in one, because this game was rumored that it was going to be a 3-part game. So the fact they've got it out in this two, I think if you play it like that or expect it to be like there's 2 games in one, then I'm happy. Like, I don't need to sit down. As I said, I had a break for 4 or 5 days this week, just not playing it, and then gone back to it just today. I don't, as long as you're not sort of trying to streamline that game and just sort of, if you jump in to play other games here and there and just jump back to God of War and not just streamline, I think you can. I think it'd probably be more enjoyable for you if you're not trying to just binge it all in one go.
Yeah, well, I'm forced to. Things I'm not forced to do. Goat Simulator 3. Now, this was an absolute joy to break away from God of War Ragnarok this week. I tell you, such a big fan of the first one. As you know, I love playing couch co-op with the boys. And this is me and my son here. And we're about to see a little bit of a challenge. So the challenge to you boys is, can you tell me whether I was player on the left or player on the right here for this footage?
It depends which character dies more.
Yeah, keep watching, and I'll let you just jump in the moment you know which one I am. But what I want to say about this game is, if you like the original GTA 1, 2, and London, the top down, the reason I love those games, the kid, was couch co-op. That it wasn't a 2-player game, but we did the old pass controller back and forth. But it's just a sandbox of absolute craziness, left, right, and center. And so if you find joy in that sort of thing, just making your own fun with the lunacy available, this game, it's certainly me and my boys down to the ground. We've pumped 11 hours into it, I think, over the weekend. We had an absolute blast. It's fantastic. You can drive cars, which wasn't in the first one. They've added Goat's driving car, which is a brilliant touch. I love it. And there's all sorts of things there. You can fly. They've done great challenges there. The quest writing and the little call outs and everything are just ludicrous and hilarious. They've got a what do you call him? Jack Sparrow, Captain Jack Sparrow. They've got like a Kraken hat. If you put the Captain Jack Sparrow hat on, you can trigger R1 at any point, and you've just got Kraken tentacles coming. It makes no sense. It's in the middle of the world, but you've just got Kraken tentacles coming out. There's one where you, as the goat, you're entering a political race, and you've got to try and beat the competitor. And it was, trying to impress the audience, but the actual solution was just to headbutt people into the voting booth. To get yourself voted. It's just absolute nonsense. But to me, it's absolute a joy. Does it sound like something you might play with your boys, Bully?
Well, I reckon half the battle will be convincing the young fella to play it, not me. He's a God of War fanatic. No, sorry, not God of War. Call of Duty.
Yeah, right.
Call of Duty fanatic at the moment. I've just set him up with the new one and plus the new Warzone. So trying to peel him off that at the moment, it's an issue. So once he gets through that phase, we'll see how we go. But I don't know. I played the first couple, the first one.
Yeah.
And it was ludicrous. It was over the top, and it's just not up my alley. I think I put 20 minutes into it, and that was more than enough for me.
I've heard this one's a bit more sort of polished is probably the word than what
Definitely.
the first was. Whereas the first was sort of lent on those silly mechanics of what the gun actually did. This one's actually got slightly a bit more when it comes to gameplay chops and what you're actually doing in the game. So I could see myself playing this. I don't think I want to spend whatever the $59.95, whatever it is to play it.
44, I think, 45.
Yeah, it's probably still a bit up there. I'd like to see this game on Game Pass if I'm going to give it a crack. But I definitely am drawn to it. I know my little fella would absolutely love it, just like your boys, Troy, because he loves stupid shit in games, and I'm more than happy to sit side by side with him and do some stupid stuff. But no, I'm definitely down for it. I don't want to spend the money on it just yet.
Fair enough.
It almost looks like Goat's Row. What should have been released.
It is, mate. If you were hoping for a good Saints Row this year and you were a bit disappointed by the woke narratives, this one has you pegged. This one is just a thing of brilliance. It's just absolute lunacy. It's everything I didn't even realize I wanted in the game at this point. But I think this will be easy another 10 hours this coming weekend for me and the boys in this one. Just a joy to play. If you're into that sort of silly couch co-op is really where this game shines. And have your boys picked out whether I was left or right yet?
I'm going to go left.
Bully?
Well, just to make it interesting, I'll go the other way, right.
You've nailed it, Bully. A winner is you. All right, Unky, over to you, my friend, for The Devil in Me.
Oh, The Devil in Me, the newest one by Supermassive Games. Massive fan of Supermassive Games. Obviously, this year already played one of my games of the year, The Quarry, which I know it's probably sitting reasonably high in Bully's list as well. But Devil in Me is the new one as part of the series they want to call it, the
Dark Pictures Anthology.
Dark Pictures Anthology. This is the last one in those before we hit season 2. But so far, what a way to go out. Like, I really enjoyed House of Ashes, which was the last one, which was the one sort of set in the desert with the army guys, and you had your sort of semi-vampire things going after you, which it was done well, and I liked what they did with the whole being able to rotate the camera and move around freely within levels and stuff like that. But for me, I much prefer when Supermassive are doing like the group of youths in a situation that involves sort of something a bit more real. So, which is why The Quarry sort of spoke to me and stuff like Until Dawn. So this sort of goes back to more that where you've got the serial killer. It's more of a Saw story. Like, it starts back like really in early days, and you play through as the opening characters in sort of more olden days style, where you go into a house and then there's you have a scenario. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who wants to play it, but essentially it sets up the story of this serial killer in this house that he's created, this hotel, and then it flashes forward and you're playing as a group of like it's like a filming company that's got a director and a whole bunch of staff that work for him, and they're creating a documentary about the killer, which is H.H. Holmes, I think his name is in the game, from back in the day. He gets sentenced to death back in the day for being a serial killer and all that. But you go to this island and all of a sudden you're in this replica mansion and stuff sort of, you're there just to film the documentary, and then stuff sort of goes from bad to worse. And it's really so far really good for me. I'm really enjoying the suspense and the, like, you guys will probably be struggling hardcore, even for something like for a game where you guys, don't like playing games in the dark and stuff. Even for me, like I've been playing this games in the daylight, and I'm like, oh, just the tension it's building. Even for me, walking through these dark hallways and stuff going on, like I think I know something's coming, and even I'm on edge. But it's really good. Like, it starts off with a lot of these characters that you sort of love to hate them. It's similar to the Quarry, where you're like, oh, they're kind of annoying at the start, but then you kind of start to know them, and then you sort of start to remember who their names are. And you think, I'm never going to remember who this person is. But then I'm a few hours into the game now, and I know who Mark is, I know who Katie is, I know who Rachel is, and I know who Charlie is, and all this kind of stuff. And they've got their relationships that you're building, and like any supermassive game, like, you make decisions, and that sort of either builds your relationship with a character or drops the relationship with the character. You got hidden things throughout the level that are going to tell you how you're going to die if you make the wrong decision. So it's sort of, you're always, am I going to make the right decision at this time? So far, I've managed to keep all my characters alive. The one issue I had with the game so far is me trying to walk over a log. All I had to hit was the right stick to balance myself. For whatever reason, I just thought it was the left stick, so I'm walking across this log the whole time, angling left, right, and fall. I fell off this log, no shit, 20 times. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing wrong? And I'm like, I did it, just light bulb moment, like, oh, right stick, you freaking idiot. Hashtag not a real gamer. Yeah, no. So I finally got across that log, and I'm in the mansion now, and just some of the stuff going on, it's just creepy. Like, some of your decisions, you're wondering, did I make that right decision? I've kept my player alive, but for how long? And it's literally, if you like Saw, then you're probably going to like this game, because some of the stuff going on and some of the mechanics involved in this hotel that are just like, because you're walking around this hotel and you're like, you could have sworn you go one way and then you come back and you're like, no, I swear I was fine going this way, but then you're like, no, I reckon that wall wasn't there last time, but they don't really make that obvious at all. You think you're going crazy. Like, am I just gone the wrong way? But then they obviously show you later on that they can move the walls and stuff. So for me, that was like a real, like, oh, they really play with me there. I actually thought for myself, I'd actually gone the wrong way multiple times in this game, playing as different characters. And no, it's the game just, being really well directed in that way. And for this game, you can now, you've got full rotation of the camera, unlike something like the Quarry, which is set camera angles. You've got your 60 frame performance mode, unlike the Quarry, which I think runs at 30 frames per second the whole time. Each character has its own mechanic now, which is really cool. Like, certain characters will have a lighter, one might have a torch, one might have a business card that you can use to unlock doors or unlock cashiers and stuff like that to find hidden collectibles. But no, just the way they sort of bounce you between each character and stuff at the moment, and the relationships they're telling. Like, I'm really, really enjoying this game, and I'm hooked. This is probably the most hooked I've been on one of the this version of their games that they've brought out. So no, I'm loving it.
Can you tell me, mate, how is it on the jump scare front? Are there 5 jump scares a minute, or are they sort of few and far between?
No, they're few and far between. So far, there's only probably maybe been 2 or 3 jump scares, and I reckon they've got me every time. And most of the time in these games, I know when they're coming. And sometimes even when you know when they're coming, they still get you for whatever reason. They've been really sort of good at building that tension, and sometimes they'll build that tension as well, and then you won't get the jump scare that you're expecting as well, which builds even more tension, because, like, when is it coming if it's not coming now? I've just been very impressed with it. I know there's been sort of mixed reviews. Some people have been high on the high end, some people have been on the low end. But for me, I think if they keep going with this Dark Pictures anthology, like The Devil in Me, I think I can see myself really enjoying the franchise. I much prefer when it's more focused and more real with the serial killer stuff, as opposed to the more supernatural stuff they do. I know a lot of their stuff has linked on the supernatural, and then sort of by the time that supernatural stuff kicks in, I'm less scared of it. But when it's sort of more just a serial killer, we don't know what's going on. There's like this whole thing of this whole family. You're like, why are you there? And I think I've figured out what might be the twist in this one. Like, it's not a spoiler because I actually don't know, but there's a character you come to meet with that he's invited you to this mansion to start with, and then he sort of like leaves the island pretty early on, and you're like, oh, where's this Dumet character? And I'm like, my theory is that I reckon they're the previous people that were stuck in this hotel that have somehow invited you there. That's their out. So they've come out and they're yours stuck in there. That's my theory. And when I finish it, I'll let you know whether I was right or not. But it'd be a pretty cool way to do this game, and I don't know how they're going to tell it. But I'm really excited to see where it's going, because some of the gameplay enhancements they've made in this game compared to other games in the series, I just think they're sort of finally getting to that point where it's more of a gameplay experience and less a sit and point and click and do timed events every now and again. So they're still in there, but I think it's now got a lot more mechanics within the game itself to sort of, hit a more broader audience, I think.
And how are they going? Like you said, it's the fourth in the series. Can you see an evolution of their sort of gameplay mechanics and everything? Are the stories getting better? Are the mechanics getting better? Is it a cleaner experience, or is it more a carbon copy of the?
No, absolutely. So I think with this one now, with the full freedom of movement, I think the House of Ashes did it first, where you could actually rotate a camera and stuff. But this one now has when you tap the LB button, instead of just walking fast, you actually like almost sprint or run now, so you can actually move around the environments much faster, and you do have free movement of that camera with the right stick now, as opposed to having set camera angles. So you actually do feel like you're sort of moving within a 3D space more so. So it's more like an action, or not action, but more of an adventure game that's not just your set camera angles and what they want you to see at any given time, which I really think does lend to a better gameplay experience and a bit more free agency to the player who's playing the game to sort of search the areas for hidden collectibles and stuff like that, as opposed to just having a linear corridor or fixed camera angle, which you've got to work within and try and find those things within it. So I think they have evolved a lot, and I think the way the stories are told, I think that hasn't changed a lot. Some people say that this is, haven't evolved too much graphically, but I think this game looks really, really good. I think the facial animations is as good as it's ever been in their games. I think probably the Quarry's maybe got better facial animation because that's their bigger title, but I think this is on par, if not better, than any other game they've brought out visually and stuff as well. Lip sync's really good, acting's really good. There's not as notable actors in this one. I think a lot of these games don't have as many notable actors as their main games, like The Quarry and Until Dawn. But no, I think definitely they're moving in the right direction. The rumors I've heard, I think season 2 starting out with a game set in space. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that's going to work compared to what they've been doing previously. But I'm definitely keen to see where they go with it.
Is it coming out early next year in line with the what is it, Dead Space remake?
Oh, who knows? I mean, they're putting these things at a pretty regular click. So I think
feels like they're 6 monthly.
Yeah, it's pretty quick, and some, like, you can argue the quality, and they are smaller games. So they don't sort of hide behind the fact they are smaller games in this series, but they are bringing them out at a decent click, and I'm really enjoying them. I like the fact they are all quite distinct and different from each other, and I like that now they are iterating on their gameplay mechanics and stuff as well. So if they can really, I would like to see their next big game, like The Quarry, come out with some of these mechanics where you do have free range of the camera. It does have a performance mode instead of just the quality mode. Whether that is doable in a bigger game and it's not a sort of smaller game, maybe that's why they have the ability to go slightly better when it comes to performance. I don't know, but I would love to see the next big game sort of have some of these mechanics put throughout it.
Nice. And now it's no sale for me. I'm just not the horror guy. Bully, you're sometimes a horror guy. How's it sounding to you, mate? Are you going to jump on in?
Oh, I think I will. I've played the first 3. As Unky said, it's a bit of an evolution. They've basically released one every year for the last 4 years, so it generally comes out, or it has been coming out in sort of September. So I don't know why they've decided to hold it back and release it in November, which is a fairly stacked period. I would have thought that they would have kept with the sort of September timeframe. But it's funny you mentioned the jump scares. For mine, I'd rather have 3 jump scares a minute. I reckon it's worse when you're plodding along, you don't get the jump scare, and then after 20 minutes, you just get one out of the blue. That's what gets me.
Nah, for me, that's good game design. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Oh, no, I get the game design, but I'd rather just have the constant, oh, geez, than 20, you get through 10, 15, 20 minutes, and all of a sudden it gets you, but when it gets you good.
I should say it has ramped up. Like towards the start of the game, there's less and less. Well, it starts out pretty strong and it slows down a little bit. Then they're starting to ramp up now. I think as the game progresses, I feel, and you've got more decisions to make in relation to the traps and stuff that are laid for you, I think it is going to lay it on a bit more thicker and faster. So I think you might get what you like the more you push on.
Yeah, and I guess wait and see how or where the next one's set. But you sort of mentioned that space thing. I don't know if it's the right move for them because the games that they've released so far, or the four, I think they're up to this is the fourth one.
Yep.
Is that they're sort of almost a gothic horror type thing. I know there's been a little bit of movement with that with the previous one.
House of Ashes, yeah.
Yeah, that sort of released last year that was a little bit different to that, but they seem to have gone back to that with this one. It's you've got that the setting or the mansion or the whatever you want to call it, of almost that gothic style setting again, which I think that's where their strength lies with this. And if you're going to take it and completely remove it out of that sort of setting, I don't know if that's the best option, but it may be that they've sort of run its course with that sort of stuff. But again, as I said, I've played the first three. In fact, I've played all the Supermassive games. I'm a massive fan of them, and as you said, Unky, I think the Quarry for me is going to be up there with the Game of the Year discussion. I think the quality of it, and I don't really see where the argument is that the graphical style hasn't improved. I thought that even if you go back to Until Dawn, that was a fantastic looking game. I've thought all the Dark Pictures games were fantastic looking games. We're not getting into that territory of the Telltale games and their sort of stuff where it was a repeated graphical style, but it was outdated when it started with. I don't really see that we're getting into that, and I don't see where the criticism comes from for that. I still think it looks fantastic, and they've all played pretty well for mine. So I think it's one that I'll check out. It's just probably gonna have to wait a bit. As I said, we're fairly stacked at the moment with releases, and we've still got generally you have the December lull period. Well, it's ramping up for some more stuff that we'll discuss a bit later, but um, I don't know where I'm going to fit this one in, unfortunately.
I feel like 6 months after release, they always land in the PS Plus monthly catalog bully. So I reckon if you hold your horses on purchasing it, you'll be in line for some Jim Ryan love on this one.
Well, I've got to have that nice little pristine case sitting up on my either my desk or my shelves there, Troy. So you know that I'm going to have to get it at some stage physically.
Fair enough, mate. Now, bully, welcome there, buddy. Tell me, how have you gone with Vampire Survive or Survivor?
Survivor, I've really enjoyed it. Free on Game Pass. I'm not sure. I know it was on PC. I don't think it's made its way to PlayStation yet. It's a fantastic little game. It's probably a little bit hard to describe. You literally use the left stick. That is all you do there's no buttons, there's no shooting, you automatically shoot or fire your weapons or attack or whatever it is. There's no health regen other than if you walk around and pick something up. It's a fantastic little game. I was getting a little frustrated with it. It's after you play once or twice and you die, and then after that, I was getting a little bit frustrated with it. You get to a certain point where, as you can see on the screen, the amount of enemies that just attack you from all directions, you get to the point where you were just overwhelmed and there was nothing you could do about it. I got to the point today where I've upgraded my weapons and spells and other stuff like that. You can basically fight off most of this, and the aim of it is in each of the levels essentially is to last for 30 minutes, and then once you get to the end of the 30 minutes, that's the end of the level. There's obviously sections within that sort of trigger different points. If you can last 20 minutes, or if you can upgrade your weapons to a certain level within that time period, etc., etc. But the aim of the game is to last 30 minutes, and it gets.
I'm so glad you told me that. I had no idea how I was unlocking the next level, and I just kept playing until it popped.
To be honest, I don't know, because today was the first day that I actually got to the 30 minutes, but I've already unlocked 3 levels, so I don't know how I've been going about that. I think you've got to hit 20 minutes in the previous level to then unlock the next level, I think.
It's not based on your level that you're hitting in terms of your character level?
No, I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Because the character level that you're progressing through within each stage resets back to 0 when you start the next stage.
Gotcha.
So I think it's, from the best I could work out to start with, it's when you hit, the goal is to hit 30 minutes, but if you hit 20, it unlocks the next stage. There's a heap of different characters you can use that each have different starting abilities. And then as you progress, you can unlock more weapons based on the gems that you pick up, or the diamonds, whatever you want to call them. You can sort of see them splashing across screen there, and then your bar fills up the top. You level up, you can then increase your weapons and that sort of stuff. But it's really simple game. It's really addictive.
Yeah,
because you'll play one and you go, oh, you know, if only I had got that weapon when instead of that one, or if I had have done this differently, or whatever it was, and then you go, and it's sometimes the game can only last 2-3 minutes depending on how you play it, but it sucks you back in to have another go, and then another go, and then if I just play a little bit longer, I can get some more coins, and then I can unlock this as a permanent thing. So it's got a lot of roguelike stuff to it. So that you can unlock stuff on the main menu that then carries over into each playthrough, and the more coins that you collect, the more stuff you can unlock, and it sort of makes it a lot easier.
Have either of you blokes unlocked the second life in the meta game? I think it's the most expensive one. It might be $10,000 or something dollars.
I haven't yet.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of my money in the I've sort of found there's a couple of weapons that are really good and really beneficial, especially in the later stages of the game. They might not seem that they are in the early sort of phase in the first couple of minutes, but by the time you get to that 20 to 25, 30 minute mark, there's a couple in there like the daggers, the lightning attacks, and some of that sort of stuff that I found is really essential to getting you into that late sort of stage of each level. So, and then within the main menu, you can also, when you're unlocking this stuff, you can actually get to the point where you're starting those base weapons at a higher level each time you enter. So I'll spend a lot of my money doing that sort of stuff to sort of progress, make sure that you're progressing through longer, that you can then spend more time in each level, get more coins, and then ultimately, I think when I first started out, you were lucky to get 300 or 400 coins out of each run. Well, I did a run before, which was before the one where I did the 30 minutes, and I think I dragged about 4,500, 5,000 coins out of it.
Nice.
Which obviously gets you a lot more spending money. So the more you do that, but I reckon it's a fantastic little game. As I said, it's free on Game Pass. I'm not sure where it sits or how it sits monetary wise on PC or Steam or wherever it is, but I
it's included in PC. It's included in PC Game Pass as well, mate.
Oh, there you go. So, if you've got Game Pass, there's no reason not to check it out. It might not be entirely up your alley. I was a bit questionable about it to start with, but it's addictive, it's fun, it's enjoyable, and it's got that little, as I said, it's got that little hook gameplay loop where you just think, oh, if I just unlock this, I could do better next time. And it sucks you in when you think you're going to go, I'll just have one quick game and spend 5 or 10 minutes with it. 3 hours later, you're still going, just, if I can just unlock this. I reckon it's fantastic.
So what you're saying is God of War should go to just a single joystick control scheme.
Well,
if it did, I'd be able to use my arcade stick on it, as I do for this game.
Well, I don't know how to break this to you, Unky. I've spent more time with Vampire Survivor than I have with God of War. So
I've spent more time with Goat Simulator 3 than God of War.
So that's where I'm sort of sitting. If you wanted me to tell you which one's the better game, maybe you don't want me to tell you.
I really don't.
2 big thumbs up from me, guys. Yeah, I keep coming back to this one, and I'm absolutely loving it. To your point, Bully, the meta game really, for me, is what keeps pulling me back. It is just now I've upgraded my luck by 10%, from my starting luck and that sort of stuff. And that's the big tip. Upgrade the luck early, and then you get you really rake the money in. Upgrading the luck increases the drop rate of the chests, which is where the big payouts for me have been anyway. Any further play from you, Unky? Any thoughts this week?
No, I haven't had too much of a chance. I've been playing something else I'm about to speak about soon, which has got it's taking up all my time. So you can move on to the next game, and then I'll move on to the game that I've been playing a lot of this week.
All right, then. This one will just be a quick one for me. I just want to let everyone know that I've finished Gotham Knights. And Bully, to your point with God of War, I knocked this down to easy just so I could get it off my plate. I wanted to know how the story ended. I found that out, but I knocked it down to easy to get there. So hashtag fake gamer, I think, for me this week. But finally got through the story, enjoyed myself. I do not understand why everyone knocked this game so hard. I don't see the criticisms at all weighing up to the score. So that's a bit odd, but I don't even want to say how the story ends. Wild speculation aside, it's an enjoyable ride though, and I encourage any superhero fans to play this story. I think it's got some really unique elements in it that pay off at the end. I liked it.
No, definitely. It's criminally underrated, I think, with the gaming industry at the moment, especially with some games out there at the moment. Getting certain scores, even the game I'm about to speak about, some of the scores it's getting compared to its, the way it runs are quite high. But this game for, it's 30 frames per second that it was everyone griped about. It's a very solid 30 frames and still runs very smooth. And it's a very good looking game, very fun game to play and great story. It's criminally underrated by critics.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And check out the suits you get by the end of the game.
Oh, so good.
I only played the other 3 characters for the little trophy for playing as all 4 at some point, but just the different dynamic outfits that you get for Robin and the way you can sort of transmog them throughout the story is crazy. And I've only seen 1 character set. I can't imagine how busy their art department was getting all those character sets outfits done. But anyway, phenomenal game. Don't listen to the critics. Definitely give this one a shot if you can. It's a phenomenal game. I just want a 4-player co-op mode to be added. But Unky Dunky, Game 7 this evening is all you, mate. Pokemon Diamonds and Pearls.
Well, Scarlet and Violets. I have talk about Stockholm Syndrome, the game, because I've never played a game that runs this badly that I've fallen in love with so quickly, because I shouldn't like this game at all, because I am a massive, massive player when it comes to performance of my games. I cannot stand just a frame out here, frame out there, bad frame pacing in a game. This game has all of that. I'm not going to sugarcoat this at all. This is easily one of the worst, if not the worst, optimized games I have ever played on any format ever, and it's inexcusable, especially from a first-party Nintendo game, from Pokemon Company, from Game Freak. They know they're going to get people paying money for this game, and that's shouldn't be any excuse for the performance this game has put out there. But god damn, is this game fun.
Okay, one question on the performance, mate. Is it equally as bad docked and undocked, or is it just bad across the board performance-wise?
Nah, so docked is worse. Obviously, it's trying to put out a high resolution, so you get a lot more of the frame rate drops and stuff while you're docked, especially playing on a 77-inch TV like I am. You do notice it, and then undocked, you've still got those same issues, but it's definitely not as prevalent. It's running at a lower resolution, not that you really notice because it's on a smaller screen, but it does sort of tend to lend itself to sort of slightly better performance and frame rates. But again, by no means am I singing its praises at all, because this game shouldn't run this poorly. But a game that runs so poorly all the time is kind of easier to put up with than a game that is running well most of the time, then just dips here and there, because you kind of just, as I said, it's Stockholm Syndrome. You get used to it, you fall in love with it, and you just sort of put up with the gripes that you've got with it because it's always there. So it almost makes it shouldn't be a reason why it's acceptable, but it kind of is, because it's kind of just what we've got. And for whatever reason, I've never been into a Pokemon game essentially until now. I enjoyed Arceus for what it was at the start of the year, so with that semi-open world stuff, and I think now going fully open world with what they've done with this one, I think is what's got me into it, has got my hooks into me, because it's just something different. I enjoy the sort of the newer version of the Pokemon and the world you're in, as opposed to Arceus, which sort of went back to the more sort of olden day Pokemon stuff and the way they told that story. But I've just been hooked from the start. You've got that initial sort of 2 hours you got to get through where it's a little bit tedious, tutorialized, where you can tell this game's for kids. They're teaching how to play a game, and for us, 30 odd, pushing 40, as much as I hate to admit it, players of video games that have played tutorials and know how these games work, sometimes that first 2 hours can be pretty tedious because they're telling us stuff we already know and games we've played multiple times. But it didn't seem to go on that long, and I think the charm and even the art style of this game, it lends itself. I really enjoy this kind of art style. That Breath of the Wild sort of animation style to a game really appeals to me. And I think the menus, the way they look and the way the Pokemon look, it's quite charming. So yes, the game runs poorly, but the way it looks for me is still appealing. Go ahead.
Have they evolved anything from a gameplay mechanics standpoint? Is this bringing something new?
I wouldn't say they've kind of incorporated some of the stuff from Arceus. So now you do have the free roam of the world, and you can sort of see Pokemon in the world, and you choose when you battle them. It's not this like random walk through the grass, get challenged by a Pokemon kind of thing. So you do see them out in the wild, but the problem you got with the performance is you'll be sort of riding on your Pokemon that you've got pretty early in the game, and they can just appear in front of you out of nowhere, and you find yourself in a battle because the Switch or whatever it is, or Game Freak, when they made the game, just haven't optimized it enough for that to actually occur before you've even got there. So that can be frustrating. But that being said, like the riding of the Pokemon, depending on whether you pick Scarlet or Violet, is really fun, and you fight these Titan Pokemon that then give your ride-on Pokemon different abilities. So I've now just unlocked the ability to rush, so I can click down the left thumbstick and sprint. He goes much quicker, and you can jump throughout the level. So just exploring and finding the stuff hidden within the area and finding the hidden Pokemon is just much more fun than it ever has been. So you've always got to think at the start, picking your opening Pokemon. I just saw on my guy Fuoko, which is the little red dinosaur looking dude. Looks really cute at the start. I was very pissed off with his first evolution because he's got this stupid looking sombrero. He just looks like a retard, but probably can't say that. But he doesn't look great at all. And I'm hoping that his next evolution is much better than what it is now. But he has carried me pretty well through the opening stages of the game with some of the battles I've had. Like I've beaten my very first gym leader ever in a Pokemon, so I have to give myself a pat on the back for that because I've never ever played a Pokemon game where I've actually beaten
real gamer.
Hashtag real gamer. I got through it. I was on message last night. I said I've beaten my second gym leader. I've done one of the Titans and upgraded my first ability, and I've taken out one of the star bases as well. So the star guys are like the bad Pokemon people that you've got to go take out their bases. So, and there's a new mechanic now where you can hit right bumper and you can send your Pokemon out and not actually get in battles per se. They'll just attack the Pokemon and defeat them within the world. And if you're high enough level, then you get experience and stuff like that. So they've sort of taken that stuff out. I mean, Arceus had a thing where you can just throw a Pokeball and catch a Pokemon in the open. That's not quite there this time. You can still sort of sneak around. You can crouch and throw a Pokeball at a Pokemon, but you will still end up in a battle with that Pokemon. You can't just catch them straight off the bat. So you still have to battle them. Yeah, you still get like first move and stuff if you do manage to sneak up on them, which is kind of cool. But I did enjoy that mechanic in Arceus where you could just throw a Pokeball and catch a Pokemon. But no, I'm really enjoying my time with it. They've got raid. Go for it.
Did it come out? Was it this week?
Last Thursday.
Okay, so Bully, when's Amazon delivering it? Next week for you?
Yeah, it got delayed. You know that. After my spat over the God of War delivery, that I had wiped them off the park. My only problem was that I pre-ordered this in March or April, I think, with the double pack. Now, that had sold out everywhere, so I cannot get it anywhere else. I have to stick with these Muppets for one more effort, and they've dudded me again. Because it was, again, not released or not shipped until 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the day of delivery, you morons. I live 90 minutes away from the goddamn warehouse, and it's taken them, well, if I get it tomorrow, it'll have taken them a week.
Have you asked if you can just pick it up yourself?
Well, at this point, it'd be a lot quicker, wouldn't it? I'm going to keep this PG. How the ever-loving God can you not have that delivered 90 minutes away inside a week? What a job.
I don't fucking know, Bully.
Well, okay, seeing as you've gone there, fuck you, Amazon. I've had a bad for your bullshit. And if I knew that I could get this last Friday by driving up to your dumbass fucking warehouse, I would have got to pick it up myself. You're done, you're wiped. Go stuff yourself. I'm done. I don't care how cheap your prices are. I'm going somewhere else. Fuck off.
Amazon's new click and collect service coming soon. So
they'd still fuck that up.
Click and collect for you, Bully. Pick up in Perth. Unky, does this support if I remember correctly, this is going back a few years, but didn't Switch have a ball that connected to the Switch? The Pokeball that you could throw?
Yeah, I don't believe this has that incorporated at all. Not that it needs it. I mean, it runs poorly enough as it is. I don't think it needs any other mechanics slowing it down. But no, as I said, you see some of the stuff I'm seeing. Like you see, I think right now we've got in the scenes one of the raid Pokemon you can go after. They do some cool animations and stuff when you're fighting those with a group of people. A lot of your outside of the world Pokemon fights are pretty standard, like turn-based stuff, and there's a lot of tech stuff happening on the screen at once. Like, this Pokemon's defense dropped, this Pokemon's attack raises. Like, I think they could fasten some of that stuff up, because sometimes you're sitting there for ages with one battle that you're doing and Pokemon's doing all this shit and you're like, okay, dude, just let me attack. Like, I don't need to know everything you're doing. But where they're moving forward with this, I think if they give it another year as opposed to 6 months or whatever it was, 8 months between Pokemon games, I think they've really got a formula now that could really sort of start to tap into what people really want out of Pokemon game, which is Pokemon Breath of the Wild. Like, this is as close as you're going to get so far. I just think it just runs way too poorly. It needs to run better. It was kind of one of the basis of my appeal towards the game, because I kind of heard all the stuff about how bad it runs. I kind of just wanted to see it for myself. Yep. And I haven't had any real glitches. I haven't had any hard crashes. I've had no real bad glitches. It's just sort of more those frame rate drops and stuff here and there. But
and pop-in, I think, but one of the main complaints, isn't it?
Yeah, pop-in's real bad. And if you do the gym battles, and before you fight the gym leader, you've got to do these tasks. So the first task I had was to collect, I think it was 10 of these little sunflower plant things, and you walk around. By the time you've got 10 of them following you, their frame rates at maybe 2 frames per second, bouncing around you. So it just looked terrible. And then, speaking of challenges, there was actually a pretty funny challenge you had to do. She was like a streamer and leader of this gym, and you had to go around. It was like a Where's Wally. You had to find the guy in the screen, and then you had to do some fights. So they're doing some really cool stuff with the Pokemon stuff, and I'm really enjoying the story. And I've heard the story towards the end goes some pretty cool places, but I just like the open-endedness of this game. I just think the art style is cool. It just needs to run better. The open world, the exploration, the Pokemon I think are really cool. This is the cutest I found Pokemon ever. I caught a dolphin one that's just absolutely insanely cute the other day, which apparently is quite hard to catch, I heard. But apparently I've caught him way earlier than I should have, because my Pokemon that I ride apparently is supposed to get an ability to go into the ocean and go into the water, and that's where you can catch these Pokemon that I caught, but I managed to catch him at a very shallow part of the ocean. So,
Are you sure it was shallow and the ocean just hadn't rendered yet?
Yeah, maybe that's the case. I don't know, but I'm going to call myself a hashtag gamer and leave it there. But no, as I said, I've never been as hooked on a Pokemon game as I have now. I've never been into the Pokemon games. I've never put sort of more than maybe a couple of hours into them. But ever since I bought this game, which has been a game that wasn't on my radar at all, because I just knew I wanted to play other games around it, I've probably put more hours into this game in the last 5 days than any other game that I've talked about tonight. So that says a lot about a game that runs this poorly, that I can play it this much and have this much fun with it. So I think if you do enjoy Pokemon, kids out there aren't going to give it absolute stuff about frame rates and stuff. They're going to eat it up. And I think this is the right move for Pokemon. I think moving forward, this is what they need to do with Pokemon. I just think they need some help, whether it's Monolith Studios, the guys that do blanking on the name. I played the game recently this year. It's number 3 in the series on Switch. Anyone chime in if you can. But
Goat Simulator 3.
Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Thank you, Bully. So the guys who do Xenoblade Chronicles, their open world just runs flawlessly in that game, and that game is doing a hell of a lot on screen at any given time. So whether they can get a chop out from those guys to make the next Pokemon, I think in terms of creating an open world, I think that would be absolutely tremendous for the series moving forward. But great game, just hampered by technical performance.
On that point, mate, I don't know, I'm not a Switch player very often. Very rarely do I pick it up. My question, if this headset would go back in. Sorry, guys. My question is, how frequently do they get the patches out on the Switch? Is this something that you could reasonably expect they will patch?
You'd like to hope so, given the feedback that's coming their way, but I just don't know whether they care. The fact that this game is sold as well as it has, and will sell as well, for ages, given the fact that it's Pokemon, it's the biggest franchise in the world. I just don't think they're going to care. If the game keeps selling and they don't need to do anything to it, why would they? They'd probably move forward to creating the next game they want to bring out in March next year, probably. But I hope they do. I hope they sort of listen to the feedback, and if they want to garner goodwill from the public and from the gamers out there, then they will fix this game up, at least with some of these performance issues they've been having, because a game just should not come out in this state ever, especially when it's marquee title for Nintendo.
And so did it have the Nintendo seal of quality on it or no?
Well, if it did, it shouldn't.
Any points from you there, Bully? I've got none others.
I've really been looking forward to this. As I said to you before, I pre-ordered this when the double pack first came out. I love my Pokemon stuff. I've got binders and binders and binders of the cards. I was really looking forward to it. The open world, as you said, almost the Zelda type sort of open world that I was really looking forward to, and throwing all the Pokemon stuff in there really excited me. The fact that it runs like absolute trash. I'll still play it. I'll still pick it up. I don't know how much enjoyment I'll get out of it. Although Unky's, as he said, he's still enjoying it despite the issues that it's got. I do hope they patch it. Discussion we're having before is whether, and Unky mentioned it, is whether they give us stuff about it, because they're going to move on to the next one. It's going to sell millions of copies the next one anyway. I think that I really think that they need to be honest with you, because other Pokemon games have had a bit of backlash and had a bit of had performance issues that aren't nearly as bad as this, and they haven't gone to the effort of really fixing it up. I think this has got such bad publicity and it's been seen in such a bad light that they're almost forced to, I think, for the next game, because if they then go to the next game and release that with this as the previous one, instead of having that 10 to 15 million, 20 million sales, there'll be a lot of people that'll be hanging off day one, looking at it going, well, hang on, I pre-ordered, I was there day one last time and it was absolute trash. It didn't work properly. There was bugs and glitches and frame rate issues galore. I'm not going to get it this time. I'm going to wait until you actually put something out. It's a bit of quality. So I don't know whether that's in the back of their mind, that they really have to put a bit of effort into this one to get it up to a bit of quality for the series going forward. But I'm really worried about what Unky mentioned before, is the fact that they probably don't give us stuff because they've made their money back tenfold already in the first week of sales, and it's only going to grow from there. So whether they just go, well, we've made it, we don't care. My only rider on that would be, I can see Nintendo getting on their back about it, because we all know that Nintendo, although they don't have the highest quality graphics and all the rest of it, they are really have a bar set with gameplay and performance and making sure that everything's sort of squared away before release. And this is one of the few titles, as you mentioned, that has really come nowhere near the mark. So hopefully Nintendo get on Game Freak's back and get them to do something if they haven't initiated that themselves already. But again, despite all those negatives, I love Pokemon, and as soon as those fucktard morons at Amazon decide that they're going to show up at my door and give it to me, it'll be straight in the Switch and I'll be playing it.
Until then, I'm going to catch them all at 5 frames per second.
A tinfoil hat moment, guys. Is there any chance this was made for the Switch 2 and it was just ready to go before the hardware?
Oh, nah. I wouldn't have thought so. The Pokemon or the Pokemon company are very they're looking years and years in advance as to what they're doing, because they're tying in video games to card releases, to anime, to merchandise and all the rest of that sort of stuff. There's no way, I don't think, that they weren't aware of where the Switch was at and a release of the next Switch or the next Nintendo console, whatever it is. There's no way, with all of that stuff sitting behind it and the money that they're looking to make out of this, there's no way that they wouldn't have known that it wasn't going to get onto the Switch 2, or that the Switch 2 wouldn't have been ready in time, I don't think.
Fair enough. If there's no final points, I suggest we move on to the final game this evening.
Go for it.
All right, this one's me. I just want to say, after our standoff last week and the unanimous consent that, of course, the best character, the best character to play was Unky. Help me out.
Celine from Returnal.
Selena Kyle from Tower of Force. But this is the furthest I've ever gotten. I got up to phase 3. It's essentially level 60 you need to get to. You know, phase 1, 20 levels, phase 2, 20 levels, phase 3, 20 levels. I got to phase 3 boss, but died there and then haven't been able to get back there. But I pumped a good 4 or 5 hours into this week, and I had just forgotten how beautiful this game was to play. So just a quick shout out to Game of the Year last year, but fantastic update. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's included in the Game Plus. What is it called? Game Plus Games Catalog. Now, so if you're a subscriber to that, you can be checking it out for free, and I think you absolutely should. But that will bring us on to the news segment. You have the right to remain newsworthy. First up this evening, Unky Dunky. VGC tells us Assassin's Creed Valhalla's post-launch support will end next month.
It does. From Andy Robertson, VGC. We're on December 6th. We will be releasing our final content update for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, wrapping up 2 amazing years of post-launch support the company wrote on its official blog. So, yeah, we're seeing at the end of... They've actually done pretty well. They've actually released a fair bit of content for this game, and I know you were a massive fan, Troy, of this game.
Still am. I love it.
Yeah, so for me, I was more of a Odyssey fan. It's probably still my favourite one going. There were some beautiful vistas. Didn't make it into tonight's standoff, unfortunately. But no, they're still supporting this game, and obviously to see the last content come out, at least it showed that they have supported this game for quite a long time now. And I prefer this sort of cadence of Assassin's Creed, the way they've released a game and then just supported it for a lot longer than bring out another game, which gives the other game sort of more time to breathe by the time it comes out. So no, I really enjoyed their rollout of content. I think this game just sort of speaks, volumes to the way the new format of Assassin's Creed's been working.
Yeah, it's an absolute joy to play. If you get to go hands-on, I suggest you do. Bully, any thoughts on this? Take that as a hard pass from Bully. All right, story 2 this evening. Pokémon Scarlett and Violet. We were just talking about this. Nintendo's biggest launch ever with 10 million sales, Hunky. You were one of them.
No, I was, and I didn't expect to be, but yeah, they got me, and I was well aware of the performance issues, but well before I bought it. So there's plenty of people out there that aren't like me that had no idea and are playing this game for the first time and going, "Oh my god, it runs terrible." But the fact that a game can appeal to someone even like me who is so ingrained in performance in video games and still enjoy it, I can see where this is coming from. It's Pokemon still. Like again, Pokemon sells itself these days. We don't need to even question the following this franchise has. Just cards, TV show, video games. It's just massive worldwide. So there's the fact that it can bring this game out and have the issues have and still be one of the biggest selling games, if not the biggest selling Nintendo game to date, is just not surprising at all. And again, I just hope they can fix some of this performance stuff, because it'd be great to be playing one of these games where we aren't just complaining about its performance and just singing its praises for the gameplay alone.
And now I've no idea, mate, but does Bully said earlier, there's the Pokemon anime is quite big. Has there been a Netflix type release to coincide with the release of this game to pump up its numbers at all, or is this pure game?
There's been no Netflix one. I know they recently just had a massive episode recently aired, which was Ash Ketchup is his name, I think. I could be completely wrong that, but Ash from the Pokemon series became like the number 1 Pokemon trainer in the world in the most recent cartoon show. Then everyone's been speaking wonders of that. So it has timed it pretty well with that if you are a massive Pokemon fan. But the fact that this has had the biggest software sales of any Nintendo platform within the first 3 days of all time, it kind of says a lot. So that's where I was sort of leaning on before, and what Bully said, that I just don't know if they care enough about the performance issues when the game's selling hand over fist as it is. So you like to think that they're going to look after their consumer, but at the end of the day, you're like, well, will they?
Probably not. Spoiler alert.
No, probably not. Which sucks, because a lot of the people out there that do enjoy the game and do want better performance aren't going to get that. It sucks, because there's such a good game under there. There's such a good base now with what they've got moving forward that it just needs better performance. And I'm like, I can't keep saying it. It's well done to Pokemon. Yep, they've obviously making their money hand over fist, and they'll continue to do so.
Let's hope if they don't patch it, the old Switch 2 comes out next year and it has some sort of backwards compatibility.
Oh, let's hope so.
All right, story 3 this evening. God of War Ragnarok is PlayStation's fastest selling first-party game ever. 5.1 million, half the sales of Pokemon. But I think it runs a damn sight better.
Oh, yes, it does. And there's no more contrasting game going between Pokemon and God of War this week for me, let me tell you, because one definitely looks like the value you're paying for it. One does not. But that being said, like again, Sony just go from strength to strength when it comes to their first party games. Like I think they'll continue to do the exact same thing. You could argue, is this the right business model for Sony moving forward, where they just rely on these big hitter games to sort of sell as well as they do? They probably can keep doing that. I mean, they've got Spider-Man 2, Wolverine in the pipelines now as well. They're probably going to sell just as well, if not better, than God of War moving forward. This is a sequel to one of the best games ever made and critically acclaimed now. Bully is terrible at the game and doesn't like it at all, but that's fine. I mean, your hands are broken.
Totally at this point.
Again, I've got good hands and I'm good at the game, so it stands to reason I'm actually enjoying the game.
If only my boys were a bit older, I'd make them crush their hands on it just so I could see it.
Oh, absolutely true. I need you, that moment I was speaking about earlier in terms of bringing tears to my eyes. Mate, it's so good.
I'm
it's
looking
so
forward
good.
to it.
I want to tell you what happens, and it'll still bring tears to your eyes, but I just want you to experience it the first time by yourself.
Now, as I said, mate, now that I've worked out to do the old stream it to the PS4 just so I can use the old controller, I'm away. I'll be onto it this week. I reckon I'll be churning through it. I'll get there very shortly. Bully, have you returned, mate? And any thoughts on this one?
Well, it's funny. I don't think it's in the news for us this week, but Microsoft come out and said, as part of their trying to battle through the Activision acquirement, that they can't compete with Sony and the releases that they're putting out, that they're on another level. And this again just shows it. 5 million copies in the first week is I know we just said the Pokemon so well, but that's on a different stratosphere as far as I'm concerned, and reaches a far broader audience. But the fact that Sony can sell 5 million copies in the first week, they're well on their way to. I think Spider-Man is at this stage their biggest seller, which is up over 20 million.
21 million, I think.
Yeah. So if you've hit 5 in the first week, by the time you hit Christmas, by the time you get through Black Friday sales, the lead up to Christmas, all the rest of it, I really wouldn't be surprised if the start of the new year, we're talking about that they've sold 15 plus million copies, to be honest with you, which should be putting that up there with one of the biggest sellers of all time. And, good luck to them. That's sort of their model now at the moment is they're relying on the big budget blockbuster AAA titles, and that's what they're pushing through to sell their consoles. So, good luck to them. Obviously I've got my my issues with it, but old Jimmy Crying Ryan will be laughing all the way to the bank with this one, I would have thought.
Well, 5.1 million copies sold. Amazon yet to deliver half of them. Do we think there's a TV show in the works for God of War, a Netflix special, the like?
I don't think there is. I actually think because it led itself pretty well to an anime series, kind of like the Cyberpunk stuff. I think if they did it that way, I think it could be really well done. But nothing in the pipelines yet. But I think with the way Sony's going at the moment, I don't be surprised if you start seeing something TV related in relation to God of War pretty soon.
Oh, yes, I think it's got to be on the cards. Speaking of God of War Ragnarok director says he wants to work on Castlevania next. What do you think, Unky? Can we get a 60-hour epic out of a Castlevania?
I reckon you could. Like, you think about it, Castlevania is one of those games that it could literally have that God of War original, trilogy to the 2018 Ragnarok sort of resurgence. Like, if you create a game very similar to that third-person action adventure game and they utilize that Castlevania franchise, that could be huge, I think. They do the fantasy stuff really well, and if you can create a great story around the Castlevania stuff, I think it could do really well. You think you got your Naughty Dogs that have got your Last of Us and Uncharted. You've got Insomniac that are going to have Spider-Man and Wolverine, and then you could have Sony Santa Monica that have God of War and Castlevania in their mix. Like, that's two massive games, and I think Sony Santa Monica, I think they are probably the perfect developer for something like a Castlevania. It's got a massive following already. It's got a really good TV show or anime that's I think it's on Netflix as well. That's really well reviewed and stuff. So it's got an audience, and I think it could bring a newer audience to that game if someone like your God of War developers want to make it. All they're going to do is obviously get the rights to the franchise, but. to be honest, I think that's moving forward. That's not a bad option for them, as apart from obviously creating their own IP. But I think they've already proven so well that they can work well with an older IP and bring it to a fresh audience as well. So, I think it's actually not a bad idea.
Do you think how would they go if they did the small team break off, like 12, just a team of 12 just did a small like rehash more of the first game? Would that work, do you think, or does it have to be big budget AAA 60 hours?
No, I reckon you go big budget with this. I think a studio like Sony Santa Monica, you're either all in or not in at all. I think you either pick a established franchise and do what they did with God of War, or you sort of move on to something new. But I think it's something like Castlevania, I think would probably lend to their wheelhouse. I think with the whole God of War and the action combat, but it's whether they want to move away from that style of game and do something different. So it is sort of a bit more removed from God of War, because I think Castlevania could probably lend itself to feeling a lot like just another God of War with reskin, but
yeah,
be the developers they are and stuff, I don't think that would be the case. I think what God of War is with the Norse mythology and all that kind of stuff would be completely different to something like a vampire game that's set within castles and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think we've seen a Castlevania game since maybe 2014. I think was the more recent one. I think it was Xbox 360 it came out on, which not a bad game. It was more your Devil May Cry sort of style game, or even like an old style God of War game. So again, lends itself perfectly into that sort of reimagined God of War 2018 style over the shoulder, one camera cut style of game. But no, I could see it really working. The word's out there now. It's whether other parties are willing to get involved and let them have the franchise.
Has there been any word? There were the two, I want to say there was two like anniversary pack-ins, like, what were they, 5 games a piece or something, like the original releases were re-released recently on PS4. Any word on how they sold? Like, is it a hot property sales-wise? Do we know?
No, I haven't heard anything. I can only imagine they sold like reasonably well. Not sort of, I wouldn't have thought they would have exceeded expectations or anything like that. But they would have done well enough. And Castlevania definitely does have the lineage of great games and stuff out there. So it's one of those ones I don't think it would tarnish Sony Santa Monica to go straight to Castlevania. We already know what they can do with an older style game with God of War. They've created arguably 2 of the best games ever made.
Yep.
So, moving forward to a franchise that is known, but not known as that AAA big game, I think it would be perfect for them, I think.
Definitely in their wheelhouse. Bully, I've never heard your thoughts on Castlevania, mate. Are you a fan?
I love Castlevania. It's quite interesting, the timing of this, to be honest with you, because there has been some discussion over the last sort of 2 or 3 years about Sony actually buying, if not Konami itself, some of their IP, because they've got quite a lot of dormant IP, Castlevania aside. You've got Metal Gear Solid series and a few of those other ones that they really haven't done a lot with over the years, and there had been discussion about Sony buying some of that. So I really see that as interesting, that the Sony Santa Monica have come out and said we'd be interested, or this is what we want to do next, and that almost ties in to the fact that Sony have been looking at it and might be looking to acquire, if nothing else, the IP itself, and then using that going forward. I'd be really excited to see what they could do with it.
And if it's sorry, mate.
I was just going to say, as Unky said, there was the Lords of Shadow that released. There was 1 and 2 that were on the 360 and the PS3 that are a bit of a departure really from what you'd normally see out of the Castlevania sort of side-scrolling way that they normally do things. But if they were to use the skills that Santa Monica have got and put that into a third-person action adventure with that storyline and all the rest of it, I reckon it'd be fantastic. In terms of the sales for that Castlevania collection that came out a couple of years ago, there's a couple of things with that. There's no sales data on it. That's number one. And number 2 is it wasn't the best collection that we've seen in recent times. We've seen others that have come out recently that have gone the whole hog, and the first one that comes to mind is the
Cowabunga collection.
100% the Cowabunga collection that had, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, it had not only the games but also the copies of manuals and promo material and all that sort of stuff. Whereas the
TV show soundtrack, box cover scans,
all that sort of stuff. Whereas the Castlevania collection was literally just, here's the games with some menu that's taken us 3 days to put together, and it was quite poor, to be honest with you. And if that's how Konami are going to be treating the license, I'd be more than happy for Sony to swoop in and buy it from them and actually put something properly together and put it out there. I would have thought, and what better studio than what we've seen.
And how do you imagine they're going to make a live service game?
I don't think this is something that'll lend it to it, but I can certainly see, it's had a bit of a renaissance, really, because you had the Netflix series that's been reviewed and received quite well, both critically and commercially. The games itself, as I said, I don't think sold overly well because it was pretty poorly put together collection, but I still think there's a fair bit of interest in the series, and if you give it to a studio that can sort of tie it in with that anime series that was on Netflix and sell it as a bundle sort of package, which is what really Sony are looking at the moment, is doing some sort of media to go along with their games. I think that fits their profile, to be honest with you, and it'd be something I think that they'd really be jumping on.
Yeah, totally makes sense to me. All right then, Unky, if there was no final points from you on that one, mate.
Nah, mate, move on.
All right then, story 5. From Oz Gamers, Dead Rising 2's release date's been pushed again. What's this, the third or fourth time they've pushed this one?
Well, I don't know. I just thought it was funny because it was this game's had development hell already, and it's been pushed back again. I think another 12 weeks from its initial launch period. So, like, I get it. I mean, we've already spoken how shitty Pokemon runs, and that probably could have dealt with another 12 months in development before coming out. And we've obviously, coming off Cyberpunk as well, and stuff like that. So I understand pushing the game back. And if a game needs to be pushed back to, be what we want, then I'm more than happy. There's plenty of other games to play in the meantime. I used to be at a state where I cared about games being pushed back, but now just do it. Like, if the game's going to be better for it, and I'm a huge Dead Island fan, and from what I've seen of this one, it looks like a lot of fun, so I want it to run well when I pick it up. And why is Bully shaking his head?
He was shocked by the headline. Can I just quickly ask, before we get Bully's thoughts, is this an Embracer purchase? Do these guys now fall under their umbrella?
Oh, Bully's shaking his head saying yes, so it would appear so.
I just wonder, I fear it's been caught in development hell so long, and Embracer have been pretty chop heavy recently. I just wonder if maybe this one will never even come out. Maybe they'll just give it the old.
No, they've got a showcase. I think they've announced they've got a showcase coming up. I think either next week or week after or something to show off more of the gameplay stuff. So
yeah, but do you remember when Embracer's team changed their name and a week later shut the studio down?
Yeah, no, I do remember that. But I think you got a game that's been this in development for so long now to finally put it out and say, yeah, the game's coming, and then I think they're pretty confident with, even though they've pushed it back 12 weeks, I think they're pretty confident it's still going to come out now. I don't think it's not like we're not going to see this game come out. It's definitely coming out now. I'll put my money on it. I put my money on God of War coming out this year. I put my money on Dead Island 2 coming out early next year, even though it's been pushed back.
Your track record's a lot better than mine on that one. Bully, what are your thoughts, mate?
Oh, it's shock horror. This has been in development limbo for the better part of 10 years. The fact that anyone thought this was, even when they released the trailer earlier in the year, anyone that actually thought this was coming out anytime soon, I think you got your head screwed on backwards, to be honest with you. This has been through 3 or 4 different developers. I think it's now with, well, it was originally with Techland, I think, that did Dying Light, and it's been it's now with Dambuster. I'm just trying to flick through this where it actually sits now, because it's been through so many different developers and all the rest of it. I'm almost at the point now, just give it up. I take on board what Unky's saying. That it's probably going to come out, but the reality is you've mucked around with it for 10 years. I don't even think, to be honest with you, the trailer that they released earlier this year made it look that fantastic.
It didn't do it for me.
I think it looks fun. I reckon it'll be fun. I enjoy Dying Light, but I missed the guns from Dying Light 1, and I don't know. I reckon it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, but so this, I mean, I still don't understand, given the fact that it's been delayed, why you announce a release date 8 months in advance, and then 3 months out from that go, oh, hang on, no, we're going to delay it again.
Did they open pre-orders?
Well, I don't know. I refuse to check Amazon to see. So I don't know why.
I heard Amazon have stopped delivering their webpage down your internet connection as well.
Oh, well, that's not the only thing I've stopped delivering those fuckwit morons. They can go to hell. You open the floodgates, Unky. I'm any chance.
I was going to say, I've opened the floodgates now. Bully's dropping an F word every time we can now.
Well, you've opened the floodgates. Anytime I can bash my will. I don't understand why 8 months out you're throwing out a release date that is not set in concrete. Why not just get everything up to the point where you're pretty much good to go, that you know in 3 or 4 months that it's going to release on that date, and then offer the release date and go from there. I don't understand what's going through their heads. And if this turns out to be any more than, C grade material, I'll be shocked. Be honest with you, but good luck to them, I suppose.
Fair enough then. Well, we'll go from C grade material to the premium S tier, if you will. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt next gen update. Bully, how excited are you for this?
Oh, I'm sitting here wetting myself.
Thank God we're going to the top half of Bully. That's what I'm saying.
Best we hide that away. If the laptop just mysteriously starts up, you'll know why. I've been hanging out for this for
hanging out. I see what you did there.
Yes, hey. I'm hanging out at the moment. I'll be hanging out shortly. I've been hanging out for this for probably 3 years since they announced that it was coming. I've wanted to get back into this for years, and every time I've sort of looked at it, I'll go, yeah, I want to play it again. Oh no, hang on, I'll hang off until that PS5 update's coming through, which has been announced, delayed, and so on and so forth. It was supposed to originally come out early this year, I think March or April or something like that.
Well, they brought it in-house at that point, very Naughty Dog style for The Last of Us Part 1.
Yeah, well, originally it was with, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it was with a Russian studio, and quite clearly we know about what's happening over there and the support that's been pulled out of a lot of Russian enterprises. So that was part of that as well, is that I don't think they were travelling that well with it anyway. And the fact that, they've obviously got conflict over there, they've taken it off and brought it back in-house. To mine, I've seen some of the comparisons. It looks fantastic compared to the PS4 version, which is now 7 years old.
Oh gosh, quick maths, anyone?
2015, I think, was top of my head that it came out. The side-by-side comparisons look fantastic. And it's not just the fact that you're getting a graphical upgrade from what we've seen, and I'd like to see how this sort of pans out when we actually get our hands on it, but they're talking about obviously introducing, ray tracing and that sort of stuff, which is almost what we expect with the PS5. But there's also material and quest lines and stuff that they've brought in from the Netflix series. And on top of that as well, they're talking about gameplay tweaks as well. So obviously, as I said, it's a 7-year-old game, the PS4 version, which, it was a little bit janky, some of the combat when it was originally released, and that was 7 years ago. So if you're looking forward to that now, I don't think it's really going to hold up. So the fact that they've actually gone back and reworked some of that as well, and hopefully that turns out to be something a bit more up to the modern standards as well, that we can sort of work through. But I'm absolutely excited about this. The day it comes out, it'll be on the console, it'll be playing, and I'm glad it's middle of December and there'll be nothing else to play, because I think that'll be the next month for me. Absolutely cannot wait. And the best part is, if you already own the game, it's a free upgrade for you.
I thought the best part was right here, mate. Cross progression. I'm going to be able to import my save and pop that platinum instantly. It's going to be fantastic.
Oh, no, I'm going back to... I never platinumed the first one because I got 70, 80 hours into it before I actually decided to look up a guide for it and realised you had to start the thing on Death March on the hardest level. I wasn't going to go back and do it at that stage. So I'm going to start fresh, start it on the hardest difficulty level and run through a platinum on it. Cannot wait.
Excellent. Unky, your thoughts on it, mate?
Oh, it's Witcher 3, arguably one of the best games ever made. And I've finished the game, all the DLC on PlayStation. I've written back and replayed it on the Series X back when it got its 60 frame bump. So I've gone through and got all the Griffin like gear and stuff again. So I think I may just keep playing from that save point with my Xbox Smart Delivery as opposed to the old PlayStation where I'm probably going to have to like reload a PS4, save copy of the game and upload to the cloud and jump into the game and do a whole bunch of shit before I can even play my save file on the PlayStation.
Enjoy it from the beginning again. Fantastic.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm going to probably be neck deep in Callisto Protocol in December and then High on Life, whatever it's called as well. So I've got a few things to play in December coming up, and I've still got to finish all these other games we've spoken about tonight as well. So I think The Witcher, I might dabble in it initially when it first comes out, because let's face it, whale, going to do it. No, I think this guy, he's going to play it day one, but it's not going to get his teeth into me, I don't think, until I've notched out some of these other games I'm playing.
Very nice. Do we know if it's going to support your 120 hertz monitor there, Unky? Have they said that anywhere?
I hope so. I haven't seen anything about 120 hertz, but I'd like to think with a next gen update, it's topping out at 120.
You would like to hope so. Speaking of new games, new releases this week, as brought to us by the Game Informer website. Unky Dunky, read them off, my friend.
Oh, I'll read them off. Give me a sec. I've been charging my phone because it was almost dead, so let me just run and grab it. If you can tell me the first game, I'll tell you about it.
It's the one you spoke of earlier, mate, Evil West.
Oh, Evil West. That's it's obviously out already this week. Not on Game Pass, unfortunately, which is a shame because it'd be going out to a lot of audiences out there. But PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. That was out November 22nd. Next up on the list, we have Gungrave Gore, Gore, on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Also was out on November 2022. Unlike Evil West, that came out at midnight on that date, you had to wait till 2100 hours. That's 9 p.m. for all you non-24-hour speaking people. That game, me and Bully have actually... me and Bully have jumped into this one. That was going to go on our Games Interrogation Deliberation, but because we already spoke about 4,000 other games, we left it just in here. Definitely worth checking out. Bully and I was sort of the opinion it's doing some good things, but could be doing a lot more. It's a fast-paced game, but also at the same time, takes a few steps back in relation to the way your character controls and dives can feel a bit slow, but it does have some really cool combat mechanics in there. It looks really pretty. It's really sharp. It's got high production values, really cool cutscenes from the moment your character jumps in on a dock and uses his hand to twist some bloke's head backwards and then blows a hole through another bloke. You're like, this game's got some style, and it really does. And it's based off like a really cool anime as well. So it does sort of really lead into that stuff, and it's a kind of a fun game, and it is on Game Pass, so you can just give it a go. And I've actually had a lot of fun with it. And for the fact that I didn't have to spend any money at all on it, not a bad time. It's just, if you want sort of like it's again one of those games that sort of harkens back to the Xbox 360 style of games where it's a linear based level. You're walking, you've got a lot of enemies that come at you. You've got a lot of, not so much button mashing, but you've got a lot of sort of different combos and stuff you can hit with your melee attacks and gun combos and stuff like that. If you want just sort of one of those old school games and just shoot some stuff and it's violent and you don't have to think too much, definitely this is the game for you.
You've sold me on it, mate. It won't be this week, but next week it'll be on the channel for a Let's Install for anyone out there keen.
Beautiful. Yeah, give it a go. It's looking like it's running at maybe 4K 60 as well, so it's definitely very crisp on the eyes on the old TV, which is nice. Just Dance 2023 next on the list, also November 22. It comes with PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and your Switch. We also have Ship of Fools, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and Switch and PC, November 22nd. So everything this week coming out November 22nd. So as we're telling you right now, all this stuff is already out for your gaming goodness. One game that's not on this list, though, which I did actually have to purchase this week, was the Five Nights at Freddy's, or FNAF, if you're in the lingo. Came out on the Xbox. I think it launched a year ago on the PC, but it hit Xbox this week. But really cool game. Like, my little fella, he loves drawing the characters from FNAF. And all that stuff, as creepy as it is. But this game, I didn't expect it to actually be any good. But if you're a fan of Alien Isolation, which a lot of people are, this game is very similar to that first-person horror survival hidey game. Where
Do you know if this is this the 7th one in the series?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, this is the first time it's got sort of slightly more expanded gameplay. This is like a first person sort of game where you're walking around this Pizza Hut stuff, and it's a really well realized world as well. Like we're walking around this thing, it's properly created. You feel like you're actually in a location, which is really cool. And we've had some jump scares in this game. My God, like my son could not wait. He was up. I was up at work at about 5:15 this morning, and I heard him running down the stairs, and he just wanted to play it because he knew I downloaded the night before. Oh, buddy, sorry, I've got to go to work this morning. We'll play it when I get home. And he could not wait. I picked him up from the grandparents early tonight, and we came home. He was like, I just want to play FNAF. And like, we jumped in. He's like, this is the best day of my life. And he'd watched a lot of YouTube stuff as well, and he'd really enjoyed sort of watching that. But playing it with him, it was so much fun. Like I implore anyone that's if you want like a more of a horror experience for more of a kid, and your kid can sort of deal with that kind of stuff, this is probably a really good entry point for it because, yeah, it's horror and stuff, but it's not too scary. Like, they're animatronic animals and stuff that come at you and they'll attack you every now and again. But I've had so many jump frights just in the afternoon playing it with him, but they're just fun. They're fun because they get you, and then you go back and you do redo the checkpoint and stuff, but it doesn't handhold you at all. Like I've even had to look up some walkthroughs to see what I had to do next just to get through to the next part, but it doesn't handhold. You've got to these checkpoints and stuff that you've got to get to, and it's just really on the edge of your seat stuff. Like it's a really fun game. I did not expect it to be, and thank God it's got something for it because it cost me $60.
Has it inspired you at all to try the VR version, mate?
I didn't know there was a VR version, but I can imagine it would be quite horrifying playing this game because it's got some very eerie music. My little fellow asked me to turn the volume down on the music. He's like, "That's a little bit scary," and I'm like, "Are you okay, buddy?" He's like, "Give me the thumbs up." He's like scared, but he's loving it at the same time. So it was perfect. So I can't wait to keep playing that game with him. So not on the new release list this week from Game Informer, but definitely one worth checking out.
Very good. And if you ever go to America, I highly encourage you to go to Chuck E. Cheese, the venue. It's actually it's modeled off in real life. And I got to tell you, the real venue is quite scary. I wouldn't be going back.
The mouse is cool, man. What are you talking about?
Oh, don't get me. My son has drawn that mouse and like creepily. I'll send you some pics. You won't sleep for weeks.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's new releases, which can only mean one thing, gentlemen. It's time for the standoff. Full fight. Donkey, what are the constraints for us this week?
This week we've got most memorable gaming vista or view, however you like to see it. But there's probably a lot out there that I've missed. But I've just pulled some of my favourites for this list. So stuff you if you're not on the list. But let us know in the comments there if any of these are to your liking.
And just before we jump into it, mate, Bully, there's been 2 polls in the YouTube chat to cover the standoff. So I don't know if you want to maybe get across there and if there's any interesting data you want to throw in as we go here. Sorry, Unky, back to you for the standoff entrant 1 this week.
Number 1, we have Destiny The Tower. You could go arguably Destiny 2 The Tower as well, but just The Tower in general. It's just one of those things, like you play some of the opening missions of Destiny, then you finally come to the tower, and I know for myself, I sat there on the edge of the precipice, as you can see this character doing here, and just looking in awe at the giant planet. I can't remember what it was called in the game, but just the city beneath. It just creating such a good epic. Look at it.
Oh,
it's just so pretty. And I think by the time you get to Destiny 2, I think they had different times of day when you came back there as well. And it just looked different each time. But it's just one of those visits that's so memorable. It's one of those hub worlds that, a lot of hub worlds get, benign for being boring and just going back to the hub world and, mixing with players and stuff there. But you really went back to that Destiny hub world and you saw this vista just in the background. It was just such an epic thing to look at and just, just awe-inspiring to be at. And it was just Bungie firing on all cylinders when it came to vistas.
An absolute thing of beauty, mate. I like it. Good entrant. Number 2, however, is...
Number 2, we have speaking of epic, Zelda Breath of the Wild. That moment you start the game, you start in a tiny little cave, and then you work your way out, and then you just hit the plateau, and you just see that vision of just all of Hyrule, and oh my God. Like, the main vista you get is from that when you first work out, you can see the volcano, you can see the mountain, you can see everything, but just everywhere you look in that game is just another vista worth, taking a screenshot of. But just this game is so beautiful. It's on the Switch. it's just it's just such a beautiful game. It's just the art style, just the way it looks. It's on the Switch, and you can argue that a lot of the games on this list look better in terms of their visual quality and fidelity, but the the sense of adventure this sort of brings just from the look of it when you first see it, it's just like you want to go out, you want to explore. It's one of those moments that I'll never forget in gaming. Like you could argue that Ocarina of Time, when you first sort of walk out and see the plains, is like it was epic. It's like, oh my god, there's this whole thing, but it's just a plain grass field. But when you get to Breath of the Wild and you see this view here, like my god.
It was a thing of beauty. It reminded me of an upcoming Standoff entrant. Sorry, Billy, any thoughts from you on Breath of the Wild's Vista?
Oh, that was breathtaking. I agree with you, Unky. That's they don't have the best graphics. They don't have the best performance and all the rest of it. When you came out of that little tomb that you were imprisoned in for that 100 years, and you walked out and saw that, I still remember just sitting there and just thinking, "Wow, do I get to explore all of this, or is it just a bit of a side clip sort of thing?" But the fact that you actually, whatever you've seen in that opening sequence, you can go out and touch it and feel it and play in it was absolutely amazing. I'll never forget that.
Oh, I'm getting tingles now, just like you'd say and all that stuff. It's one of those moments like a lot of games like, oh, if you can see it, you can go there. But that was this game. Like it's just anywhere you sort of are in that game, you can see that mountain anywhere from the game. And I think that was one of the design philosophies is like if you can see it, you can do it, and you can go there. And it was just absolute thing of beauty. I cannot wait for Breath of the Wild 2 and see how they expand upon that. But it was one of those moments in gaming that I was just in awe of.
Oh, that reminds me, I pre-ordered that on Amazon. Don't let me cancel it. Fucking morons.
I gotta say, this was even so impressive. It impressed me on the Wii U when I saw it for the first time.
I always forget this came out in the Wii U.
I will never forget it. It was amazing for the Wii U.
For the Wii U.
All right, number 3 this week, Unky.
And very similar, like Elden Ring, I don't know whether there was something in the art direction or whatever, but it did a very similar thing where you came out of your tutorial area, which is predominantly underground, and you came out to the plateau and saw this giant golden tree of beauty. And I think as the game...
Just before you continue with that, Jory, can you tell us about the tutorial level?
No, I can't. But I can tell you within 3 seconds of starting, I got out and saw the giant, what was his name? Golden guy on the horse there. And he kicked my teeth in fair and square. That was the tutorial level.
He did. Yeah, Troy has got a way of missing things in games, but we definitely didn't miss that vista when he first exited that area. But like again, one of those games that it does constantly throw up magnificent vistas at you, but it was just that opening where you just come out from that indoors to the outdoors and just see the vast world ahead of you. And I feel like Elden Ring did a thing where it became more vast as the more the game went on. I feel like that fog of war lifted and you could see a lot more of the world as the game went on.
Oh, especially when you rode the elevator down.
Woo, there was a lot there. So I mean, we're trying to speak of just single vistas, but Elden Ring just threw out so many at you that it was just so good to look at. You could argue that Dark Souls 3 and stuff did similar things with its, different locales and stuff. But Elden Ring, it was just that walking that vast open world. It had that Breath of the Wild moment where it's just like, I can go anywhere, I can see anything, and you literally could. Maybe not quite to the extent Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild you could actually climb things once you got that stamina up. But no, Elden Ring definitely had that thing, that central point of that massive golden tree, and by the time you get through the story, and everything turns sort of red and stuff as well, and the whole vista changes as well, was quite epic. But no, it's definitely one of those moments that stuck in my mind.
It was beautiful. Bully, sorry, mate, did you have the biome count for Elden Ring?
What's a biome?
All right, entry number 4. Entry number 4.
Entry number 4, Uncharted 2, War Torn City. So this, for me, like, yes, Uncharted's got a lot of really good vistas. I could have picked an Uncharted 4 vista. I could have picked Uncharted 2 Shangri-La. But no, I picked Uncharted 2 War Torn City. For me, it holds a special place in my heart because not only do you, for the first time ever, play Marco Polo up on a roof in a pool, one of the best achievements ever in a video game, come at me. But it's just the way they carried that through the franchise as well with Marco Polo, Marco Solo, playing it by yourself. Just I won't get started on that. But like you literally leave this pool and you go to the top of that tower in this area, and the view, as you can see here, probably not even the best view you get in the game of it, but you can rotate around. You've got these mountains, you've got these clouds and skybox that are just epic when it comes to skies. I'm a massive sky fan, and when I look at that, it's moody, it's grand, it's like can see all the beauty, it's just the coloration of everything in this world. Uncharted sort of harken on that back in Uncharted 4 as well, where you can see everywhere you're about to go with one of the best chases. I think it won our best chase in the standoff quite a while ago. But from here, Uncharted 2, going back to it, arguably one of my favourite games of all time. This, for me, was one of those times where it's like, I wish I had a photo mode because it's just beautiful.
It is, mate. And speaking of beautiful skies, entry number 5, BioShock Infinite.
BioShock Infinite. Another one of those ones where, like, yeah, it starts small scale, starts dark, starts pretty linear, and then all of a sudden you are hit with this open world. Well, not open world, but you just get this skybox of Colombia where you can see the statue, you've got the clouds, you've got the city all around you. It's not only the fact that the visuals that you're seeing at any given time, but it's so far removed from the previous BioShock where you're stuck under the ocean and stuff. You just get this whole grand look at the sky and the world that you're in, and
Don't
the
forget the
world.
barbershop quartet.
Oh, the barbershop quartet! What a great moment that was! It's just the world building you get within this moment, and the vista you're seeing at the time. It's one of those moments where it's just Bioshock just changed at this point in time from being under the ocean to in the open world, and the way they showed it to you for the first time after coming from, you're sort of down in the dark. It's dark, it's raining, it's very Bioshock 1, Bioshock 2, and then to open up into this world, it was just one of those ones that it just shocked you, hit you straight away in the face.
Did you love this one, Billy?
Oh, I did, but by the same token, as much as it's different from 1 and 2, it's once you've played through the game, it's actually very similar when you think about it. Yes, you've got the sky, but it's still the world itself is almost built. You could almost translate the first one and the second one into this, have the different backdrop and vista and all the rest of it, but it's still in essence the same game, the same constraints, the same strange world that you're basically working through. But agree, from when you start off on the rowboat going up to the lighthouse and it's all dark and dank and you're almost expecting exactly what you got out of the first two, and then all of a sudden you open up into this world, it really sets a scene for the rest of the game, which is, for those that haven't played it, the story for this is amazing.
I gotta say though, where I love this one, Bioshock 1 and 2 obviously set after the fall of the cities they were in, and I'm blanking on the name under the water, but to come up into Colombia here and have it before the fall, I thought it was just so beautiful to see the city, at its peak.
Oh yeah, I agree, and it's the fact that they've been able to draw, and you get it from the first time you get up here, is that you've got a history of America basically in the sky, and the fact that they're drawing on so many of those influences that you would see in American history, and even going so back as far as the founding fathers and all the rest of for those that know that story, but it stretches almost the entirety of the US history in this one city. You've got from the point of the founding fathers up until there's modern commentary on different things in US society, and that sort of translates across modern society as a whole. So the fact that I've been able to draw all of that into that one sort of world as well is fairly amazing.
Phenomenal effort by Ken Levine and his team. Next up, Bully, I'm just going to leave it with you, mate. Tell us things about The Witcher 3, will you?
I thought we were going to wrap this up shortly. I could speak forever and a day about The Witcher 3. I don't think it was so much of a shock because you actually start off in its own little sort of enclosed area, which is almost a tutorial. But once you actually get out into the broader area and the bigger open world area of The Witcher, but certainly that first, I think it's called the Hangman's Tree,
Yeah.
that you sort of look, and they draw you down, as you can see on the screen there. They sort of draw you down, and it's this fantastic vista and an amazing background and scenery and all the rest of it. And then it drops onto these, half a dozen guys hanging from a tree, you almost go from this, wow, how good is this, to, oh, gee, what's happening here? And it's sort of the contrast of both of those, I think, is fairly shocking as a start to your game, and then it's sort of, as you progress through it, it goes from there.
You're right, mate. It really sets the scene, sets the tone for the whole game.
I feel like the word we're looking for is haunting.
Haunting. Well, there you go. Haunting. You can use the word haunting, but it's one of those things that, and as you said, Troy, it plays out through that whole game. Is that there's some amazing things that happen, whether it's story, whether it's visuals, whether it's gameplay and all the rest of it. But there's always a juxtaposition of, yes, this gameplay is really good, or this storyline is really good, but there's also a bad side to it, or and the Baron quest is probably is always the one that sticks out for mine. With that, is that for those that haven't played it that are going to play it in the next month, I'm going to spoil it for you. But there's a fantastic storyline with the Baron that just it ends up at a point where you're almost gasping in horror at the end of that storyline, and that's just emblematic of The Witcher as a whole. Is the fantastic highs, fantastic lows, and it takes you on a fantastic journey the whole way you play it. And it doesn't matter what the storyline is, there's always something amazing around the corner waiting for you. And that vista that you get into, that sets the scene for the whole game. It's an amazing visual, and then there's a shock factor to it as well.
Yeah, it's great. Unky, any thoughts from you on Witcher 3, mate?
No, mate, it's on this list for a very good reason. It's one of those things, like, you pick all these other vistas and stuff just for their grandness and how they look and stuff. But I think The Witcher, you've got that, different shock factor with that tree. Like, you coming through, you're looking at such a beautiful scenery, but you've got this tree with just these people hanging. It's a shock to the system, but at the same time, beautiful at the same time.
It is. Red Dead 2, Unky.
Oh, Red Dead 2 is one of those games again where just the amount of times I just pause just to look at the scenery and just that game, the way it looks. I wish it ran at 60 frames per second. But this location, Rainick Ridge, just specifically, like, looking over this thing, like, Rockstar are absolutely geniuses when it comes to creating a scene. And this game is beautiful, and no matter where you look, like, you don't need an aircraft to fly over it. You don't need anything else other than just to be in the environment, and it just looks beautiful no matter where you are, no matter what time of day. But if you look at the scenery right now, like, it's got that Breath of the Wild stuff, but no matter where you are in this game, it just looks like that all the time. And obviously, with the graphical fidelity of a Rockstar game, you are getting the fidelity you don't get in a Switch game, and it's just, this game is just beautiful. It's probably one of the pulls to the game that got me through the game the whole way, is because no matter where you are in this game, it just looks incredible. And I argue going between Rainy Ridge, which is what we're seeing here, to one of the moments in the game where you're pulling up on a mansion where I think all your characters are just silhouetted at any given time, riding down this driveway essentially to a massive story moment. And it's just so well shot and just so iconic when it comes to Red Dead, that they just create these moments just based on their vistas. And it's just awe-inspiring to look at, and I can't wait to see what they do next with the next GTA. But no, just one of those things. It's just, this game is beautiful.
Agreed completely. Bully, any thoughts from you on Red Dead 2, mate?
Oh, the only thing is that Unky mentioned about you don't need to fly through it or all the rest of it. I think that's the beauty of it, is it's stripped back and it's pared back to the point where it's you and it's your horse and you're riding through these areas, and that is it. You don't need any of the NPCs in there. You don't need fantastic gadgets and modern machinery and all that. That's where the magic is. That you can imagine yourself being back in 1800s, or in this in the original, I suppose, in the early 1900s. But the fact that that's all it is, and it's stripped back to that basic of a level, and yet still looks that fantastic, and that's essentially the game. Is that it's you and your horse riding through these amazing sceneries and locations and all the rest of it. It doesn't matter where, as Unky said, it doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter if it's day or night. The textures, the shadows, and all that. The way they put it together is amazing. And I'll be brutally honest with you. I could forgo a GTA 6. Give me another Red Dead.
I'd second that, absolutely.
The story, the graphics, everything that went with that was just, for those that have watched and listened to us for a while, they know my love for The Witcher. But in terms of a game that sucks you in and you just want to be in that world, and it doesn't matter what happens, you want to be part of it. This is the preeminent game for me.
Yes, mate. I absolutely love it. Number 8. Now, this one for me is a thing of beauty. I absolutely love Fallout 3. And to your point earlier, Unky, with Breath of the Wild, I feel like, was it Fallout 3 was the first one to really do that, emerging for the vault and, it's the
Yep.
blinding white and then it just reveals
Yep.
the world in front of you. Just fantastic.
Nah,
I'll never forget stepping out the first time in Fallout 3.
Oh, absolutely. Like, you could argue it's not as beautiful as something like an Elden Ring or, Zelda Breath of the Wild in terms of what you're looking at because it's so desolate in the world they're actually showing you. But this moment here, just where you're up on top of that tower and you're setting off the nuke for the first time, if that's what you decide to do, it's one of those vistas that you just don't forget in video games. Like, I'd never played a Fallout game before until Fallout 3, but instantly playing Fallout 3, especially this moment in the game, I just absolutely fell in love with it. And it's just one of those things that it's so desolate, but you see this giant nuke going off, there's this massive destruction, and it's so well thought about within the story and stuff, and the way they showed it, the way it looks within the game as well, is just so epic as well. It's obviously an older game as well, so obviously we've got a lot of newer games on this thing that's going to have the fidelity and stuff to sort of pull it off. But even looking at this now, like I can remember where I was when I saw this moment the first time when I played it. I was sitting in my house in Melbourne East, just playing on a 40-inch LCD screen back in the day, but I still remember this moment going, "Oh my." I don't know how small the TV, Jesus. Just I can still remember this moment, and it's what brought me to the Fallout franchise. I don't know if we didn't have this moment in video games or in Fallout, that I wouldn't have been sucked into the franchise like I was. Like, I played this game all the way through, played all the DLC, and it was essentially from this moment that I was in.
Yeah, mate, just further on that point, this is the first time I recall in a Fallout game where I actually stopped and considered the consequence of my actions. This was
Yes.
really a moment of self-reflection and pause. I really enjoyed it for that. It'll forever stick in my mind for that. How about you, Billy? Was it a particularly memorable moment?
Oh, I don't know if it's so much this particular moment. I think it was just the fact that the whole world itself, in terms of how it was put together, and obviously it was originally a computer role-playing game. It was almost an isometric 2D or pseudo 3D game. The fact that they went from that to this, was just amazing in and of itself. And you talk about coming out of the vault. For me, that was one of the most amazing moments of gameplay I've ever had. Is that you're stuck underground, you're stuck inside, and this is what your life is, and then all of a sudden, you emerge, some period of time later from where the world ended, basically, and lo and behold, the world's still running and it's still surviving, and you've got to get out there and deal with it. So I think this is probably the one moment that everybody remembers, but the fact that you get out in that world is absolutely amazing in and of itself.
I agree completely. The final entrant for this week, Unky Dunky, Grand Theft Auto 5.
Oh, I've already spoken about Rockstar. They know how to create a moment. They know how to create a scene. They know how to create a vista. You could argue there's some good views in GTA 5 of just just the actual city itself of San Andreas. But I don't think many who have played GTA 5 wouldn't argue that the moment where I think you're playing as Trevor when you're flying an aircraft back to your home base.
Right.
I'm not sure if this is that mission specifically because I think you're flying some like shitty aircraft at the time, but you're flying through this canyon, and I think it's time for everyone that's playing that mission that you're flying at the sort of sunset or something like that, and you're flying through the canyon, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Like, all you have to do is fly back from the mission you're doing, and you're flying through the canyon. I think you can fly under a couple of bridges or something like that, but I just remember flying through that area going, holy crap, these guys, this just looks ridiculous. Like, it was incredible. And back when the game first released, but I think it was Xbox 360, we had GTA 5, which is crazy to think considering we've got next gen releases on current consoles. now. But going back, I've replayed the game on the current consoles and replayed that part of the game now, and it looks even better than it ever did. But it's incredible. The lighting, just the way the scene's shot, the way you're moving through the canyon there as well. We spoke about Red Dead and obviously moving through those things at a more personal level with a horse and being attached to the landmarks and not having any technological stuff, but flying through a canyon like that where it just feels like you're on top of it, you're moving through the environment like that, like you never would in real life. Because let's face it, we can walk through some nice scenery and stuff, or even ride a horse, but none of us are ever going to fly a plane, or no one that I know is going to fly a plane through a canyon like this. So that's the only experience you're ever going to get. And it just looked absolutely incredible doing it.
I gotta say, the wind was taken out of this moment scene for me. I crashed the plane about 8 times, I reckon, before I got it.
I mean, it's close to platforming for you, Troy. So I understand that you crashed the plane a fair few times. So that might have taken a fair bit away from the moment.
It sure did. And so it doesn't win for me. I think my money's on Fallout 3. But Unky, where are you sitting?
Oh, like this to be honest, creating the standoff was pretty hard because I looked at some of these. I'm like, oh, I just don't know how I'm going to pick a winner because so many of these moments for me and vistas that I've seen are just so etched in my mind of where the game went for me. But for mind, I know it's one of the newer games on those, but Zelda Breath of the Wild still takes my breath away with the hardware it was on to create that moment that it did, leaving that cave and coming out to the plateau and just seeing everything you got and what you got after it. I find it hard for me, especially to this date on my Facebook page, my not my profile pic, but whatever the thing is behind it is still essentially just a scene of Hyrule from the Switch. Says a lot about this game that, it's clearly high on my list for Vistas. I'm not sure where Bully's standing, but I think it's going to be a highly fought one somehow.
Well, actually, sorry, Bully, just before you answer that, mate, I realized I neglected to get your thoughts on GTA 5.
Oh, no, that's all right. I think it was what was said. I agree. It was fantastic looking at the time. Looking at some of the others on the list, though, I think it's, for mine, probably on the lower end of things at the end of the day. So I'm happy to just push through. And
I'll go out on a limb then and suggest maybe you're going to back The Witcher 3?
well, you're wrong.
Oh, tell me things.
Well, I know that's normally my go-to, and even if it's not in the list of our standoff contenders, I will throw it in there anyway. I'm going to go with Red Dead. For mine, the scenery in that, from the moment that you actually get out onto the snowfields in the opening sequence up in the hills, and then you finally make your way down to essentially the grasslands and then into the mountains, and you can see on the screen that you this is one game that you don't need all those added extras for. You don't need the plane. You don't need the story to go with it. You basically don't need anything else. You don't need any context of why you're there. You can just get on a horse and ride around and look at how amazing that scenery is. And it doesn't matter whether you're looking this way and then you turn around and look the other way. And meanwhile, while you're doing it, there's rabbits scurrying about your feet, and there's ducks flying through the air, and there's a bear coming out to attack you, and all the rest of it. For me, just the entirety of all that put together is absolutely amazing. And I agree with Unky. That was one of the things for me that, yes, the story was fantastic. The gameplay, it's a Rockstar game. That's not always their forte as such, but and the control scheme and all the rest of it. But the storyline that goes with this, but the playing through each of the different areas that were completely different to the next and exploring those and just coming across random things, for me, absolutely amazing. And that was what pushed me through to the end. You felt like a cowboy.
That's true. And I've just remembered being in the desert for the first time when you get the rain to come through. That's another amazing one.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And for me, I don't think that any other game has given you that feeling of who you are and what you are in a particular area or time frame as this game has. You feel like you're in the 1800s in the Wild West. You feel like you're part of that. You're just enveloped from almost the moment that you start that game. And for me, the biggest part of that, everything else aside, was the vistas that you were exploring, the areas that you were exploring, and the detail that went into it. It was absolutely unbelievable.
Well, you've lassoed me into it, Bully. I'm moving over to your camp, mate. I'm in Red Dead Redemption 2's books. Unky, any movement from your side?
I mean, he's almost got me. My only argument for Breath of the Wild would be the fact that it doesn't have the visual fidelity or quality of something like a Red Dead on a next-gen console, and it still elicits the same kind of emotions going through an open world game where it is on a Switch, it's running much lower fidelity, but it still has that epic moments, and you can see the mountain from anywhere within that world. You can climb anywhere you're going. It's I feel like I had just as many Vista moments in Zelda Breath of the Wild that I did Red Dead.
Just look at the screen.
Yeah, I know it does
He's
look good.
rotating in a forest.
I get it. And Red Dead is essentially Vista the game because a lot of it is hinged on everything you look at any given time. I could also argue the same for a game that's not even on this list, which is Ghost of Tsushima, which I've probably used more in a photo mode than any other game ever. My only argument is I just think with Breath of the Wild, with what it was and at the time and the hardware it was on, I could argue that its vistas just had a more impactful moment on me in relation to what it was doing at the time. And I know Rockstar is just an absolute, they've got bigger budget than anyone. I shouldn't argue that against something like Zelda and Nintendo because they've probably got the same budget, let's be honest. They've just got lesser hardware to work on. So I just think with the lesser hardware, I think with something very so similar, I think with something so less, with the lesser hardware and lesser graphic fidelity, I think with something that they created, I think it almost puts them at they edge out Red Dead just because they managed to elicit the same feelings for me out of something with such less hardware to go for it, and such less visual fidelity with something like Red Dead. But I could also see the argument to say, look at Red Dead; it's just absolutely beautiful. So if you guys are going Red Dead, I'm happy to jump on board.
Beautiful. Before we declare a winner, Bully, any movement in the YouTube chat polls that we need to consider?
Well, it was sort of split. So the first, interestingly enough, we had the first poll that had both Red Dead and Breath of the Wild. So Breath of the Wild come out in front on that one.
Ooh, yep.
Which was interesting. And then the second poll had Uncharted, BioShock, Witcher. I don't think I like our audience right now. And the Fallout 3 Tower Nuke. And the winner out of that one was the Uncharted 2. So I guess they're sort of split between, and as we said, it's a bit hard to put those two polls together, but they're sort of split between Red Dead, Uncharted 2 and Breath of the Wild is what they're looking
I mean, if I was arguing for, if we're talking about, specific one-note vistas, which is kind of what the Standoff is, it's not just, speaking about a game in general. You've got the one moment which we're talking about in Red Dead, which was specifically that moment, which we've obviously shown moments of it here. We've got the Hyrule Zelda, which is just the moment that he walks at the plateau and just sees that vista for the first time, and Uncharted, where you've got that one vista where you can literally see the whole world of it's not Borneo, it's Nepal.
All right,
Nepal, where it just
you've got me over.
Which looks absolutely incredible. So if you speak about single moments in vistas where you just see it, I think that's where Zelda wins it.
Oh, you've got me. You've got me over. If you're gonna put it that way, it's a single moment vista. He's coming out of that tomb at the start of the game. You got me. All right, we'll go Zelda.
Well, it sounds like Unky wins on a technicality.
Yes.
Oh, I've got the wrong tab open. Where is it? Number 2, Zelda. Breath of the Wild, a winner is you for episode 51's Standoff. Gentlemen, that brings us to audience interrogation. What has been happening there in that YouTube chat, Bully? Any further reports?
Oh, I've had a little bit in there. I think our late star put Matt 47 off. He was going, and then because I know that we're either very late for him or very early when he catches us the next morning. So he was out because we were a bit late. Eric Tate jumped in there. Gotham Knights, we were talking about that earlier. He can't understand the hate for that one. Loves it as well. Jumping through there, we've got...
While you dig up, I'll just explain to the fine viewers that the reason we were a bit late was because of the completely new setup. So with any luck, my audio sounds a bit better this week, and also the news segment was a bit easier to read. So with hope, the higher quality was worth the slight delay. My apologies again. How are we going there, Bull?
No, that's all right. And Sean Games was just saying that the Disney Starlight Valley, he was really enjoying. He's put a fair bit of time into that. And there's obviously, they've had one update or DLC or whatever you want to call it that came out in October. They've got another one coming in December as well. He was looking forward to that. We've got Tigaro as well. Tigaro? You can correct me on that one, Unky.
Just Tagaro, I think.
Tagaro. He's more of a dark suspense survival horror type, so he might be jumping onto the Dark Pictures anthology there. Jess was jumping in there as well. She's getting herself confused with Megaton and Megatron. So I don't know whether she was, while she was typing in the chat, she was looking at Transformers as well. But I will say one thing, and I have, I'm not going to throw out who's put up the request there, but I have had a request for a bit of Jim Ryan singing just to end the show out. So as we peel out, lads, I might throw a bit of that up for you.
Well, just before you do, I'll say we're off duty. Over to you, Bully. Sing us off, my friend.
Well, I was going to say, I know somebody and they called your name 1,000,000 times. This corn Sean laden. I go on loving him just the same. I know Jim Ryan's crying.
That away, Bully. Thank you very much. Unky Dunky, what else could you do with the channel?
Mate, you got to like it, subscribe it. You'll never miss it.
Oh, that was luck.
Hey, that's something.
I love everything about it. Ooh.
Old Uncle Donkey.
Donkey.